Chapter 10. The Rogue Bludger. Chapter text Remus was happy to read the next chapter, wanting dearly to see if Hermione could pull off such an advanced potion, and ignoring Sirius and James' protest as they complained they still didn't get to have their smarts debate. Honestly, Hermione would win that easily anyways. Thank Merlin, Remus huffed, or something far worse could happen. So basically torture sessions of unrealistic proportions, James summarized. Why? All five of them groaned. Dumb, dumber, and dumbest, Sirius huffed. The more he heard about this guy, the more annoying it got. Did you at least do the thing properly? James asked, while grinning over at Remus, who refused to look up. You know, spout random facts, be a horrible liar. Have a really bad habit for turning red in the face, Sirius added on. Knock it off, Remus snapped, still without looking up. Harry and Lily could see why, since the little of his face they could see had long since turned bright red at his friend's teasing. Remus knew he would never understand why his friends joked about something like this. It was a serious problem that shouldn't be taken lightly, but he had never stopped them with any real force either. Their joking simply meant they liked him enough to mess with him, something he had never thought possible in his younger years. Still chuckling at their antics, Harry corrected them. No, I had turned into an actual werewolf at the time, fur and fangs and stuff. Remus gave Harry a puzzled look and then Reed on a bit curiously. Did you try refusing to do it the other 3 times? Lily asked. Yes, Harry muttered. It hadn't worked any of those times, though, because then Lockhart had launched into a detailed account, reading word for word. Harry had decided to do it simply to make the man shut up. At least playing those dumb roles had made the process go by quicker. Actually, I don't believe that, James said, quirking a brow. Had this man ever even seen a fully grown werewolf? They weren't the kind of thing you could slam into the ground without getting your head bit off. Definitely don't believe that, Sirius cackled. What good would that do? James asked. That's a charm used to restore transfigured objects back to their original form. Its most common use is on animagus when they get stuck for some reason. It wouldn't work on a werewolf, though. Why do you know that? Lily asked, noting his most common use mostly. We had to learn it, Sirius shrugged, for all the times we screwed up our animagus practice. Came in handy a few times afterwards as well. And people believed that, Lily scoffed in disgust. If it was that easy, werewolves wouldn't even be classified as dangerous. They'd be a class 3. Harry looked puzzled, not understanding the classification thing, but then Remus said bitterly, I wish it was that easy, and then kept reading before anyone could comment. Really, I want to know how his books are sold without being found in the fictional section, James demanded. People can't really believe he did that. Harry shrugged. He had no answer for that, but he certainly didn't believe it. Wait, he actually slammed you to the ground? Remus asked, not having interpreted that from his prattling. Harry nodded, saying, more like he pushed me. Then we waved his wand in my face a lot, but he didn't let the crowd lose full sight of him. He stayed on his knees in front of the desk. I fell back behind the desk, happily out of the way. Only time I can remember not being afraid of someone's wand in my face. He finished, grinning wickedly. All 5 of them looked disgusted that this was even counted as a homework assignment, let alone the horrid prize. Oh, James said. So when Ron said the teacher would have to be really thick, he meant literally. Here I thought they were going to try and pull one over on McGonagall. Sirius sounded as surprised as his friend. Now all they have to do is just walk up to him, give him a cheap compliment, and they'll be done with it. I'm kind of disappointed, Remus sighed. I wanted to see them pull something on McGonagall too. That was the most useful thing Lockhart did all year, Harry laughed. Lily sighed in both disappointment and disgust, saying, really, she's still starstruck. This is the girl that's about to do a 6th-year potion, James asked in disbelief. Harry shrugged. He had no defense for his friend since he and Ron had seen him as a fraud on the first day. What on earth? Remus spluttered in disbelief. Doesn't Ron have a ghoul in his attic? James asked. I think I'd like to borrow that. It might not be there yet, Lily reminded them, not necessarily knocking the idea. I'd really like to hear that full story, Sirius said eagerly. If the wizard populace fell for that, maybe I could use it next time I go to the Leaky Cauldron. Remus snorted in disgust, not doubting his friend would do this one bit. If it's anything like your look, James said to Harry, then he's even dafter than I thought, and that's saying something. Harry broke out of his shock at the remembered peacock quill and chuckled at his dad. "Oh, come on." James and Sirius groaned, not believing for one second that Match would get pushed off for 2 or even 3 more chapters. "My Quidditch match was awful," James groaned. "I want another go at reading." "I haven't gotten one at all," Sirius muttered, sulking. "How do you keep getting the good chapters?" James demanded. "Just lucky, I guess," he grinned. "Was he really?" Harry asked in disbelief, not believing much of anything from him anymore. "If he was," Sirius shrugged, "it wasn't while we were there." "He'd be a 5th year, I think," James said. "So if we just so happened to pop by, we could find out." "Still doubt that," James scoffed. "By entertaining them on their long, dreary travels with my absurd stories." Remus kept going as if reading that. Sirius choked and snatched the book away, then smacked his friend with it, saying, "Jerk, don't give me false hope that man grew a brain." Remus took it back, grinning like a fool before really reading. "Less able, my ass," James howled. "Harry could go and play for England now if he damn well pleased." "Really, James," Lily huffed. "I'm not disagreeing with you, Harry is good, but don't encourage him to drop out of school." James' scowl didn't lessen one bit. "Prat," all 5 of them muttered. "First time Hermione's ever been wrong, I think," Lily said sadly. "I am forever turning to you whenever I want to describe someone," Sirius cackled. Lily face-palmed, muttering something in disgust under her breath. The boys simply looked more annoyed by Hermione. "I believe that," James nodded. "She can," Remus sighed. "I knew a Ravenclaw who mirror-imaged Flitwick's signature once, and when Pince did that, she saw it somehow. Kid had detention for a week straight. I wonder if that's some kind of magical ability, or—" Lily trailed off, now looking like she wanted to go up there and ask herself. "Well, we're planning a trip up to the school. You can ask her then," James said. "Wow, even she doesn't know where every bloody book is in there." "Either that, or she had to go all the way in the back," James laughed. "You gotten any better at that?" Remus asked. "Because the last time you tried that, Snape took away a book." Harry shrugged and said, "Well, no one took that book away. We made it all the way to Myrtle's bathroom anyways." "Why do potions like that exist?" Harry asked in disgust. "The one about being turned inside out doesn't have a practical use," Lily shrugged. "It's a threat potion more than anything, sometimes given as punishment for a short period of time." "The ministry is balmy," Sirius muttered, but Lily was ignoring him and continuing. "The other about the extra limbs sounds like a transformation potion, though since you didn't say the name of it, I can only guess at what she could have been turning into." Harry nodded, slightly agreeing with Sirius. "Pleasant," Remus shuddered, knowing very well how painful transforming could be. "Nope," Lily said. "It is not a pleasant process at all." Harry didn't look very pleased about this. "Well, duh," James laughed. "It's a 6th-year potion." "I hadn't thought of that," Lily agreed, having mostly thought of the act. Where did she plan on getting the ingredients? "I don't think you're going to like the answer," Harry said nervously. He only had a feeling after all, but it wasn't a good one. What did she mean?" Harry asked. "It doesn't have to be toenails," Lily said quickly, as Harry looked a little queasy at the thought. "Hair is most commonly used, but any bit of them like that will do." Harry still looked a little green, but nodded all the same. All 4 adults spluttered in disbelief, though the boys for a completely different reason than Lily. "That's brilliant." Sirius cackled, James and Remus nodding right along. It was high time that Slimeball knew what it felt like to get his stuff taken. Hell, they wouldn't be surprised if Snape hadn't stolen from Slughorn to make some of his potions in school. Lily, on the other hand, practically screeched, "You're going to steal from a teacher." "Mum," Harry began, but Lily cut him off, saying, "No. Last year you bent the rules around a few times and nearly got killed. Now you're breaking them in half, and for what? Because you think that Malfoy did it. Even if he was, and he blabs it to your face, what would you do? Go to Dumbledore without proof?" "Harry, no, this is one thing I will not approve of. That's even assuming a 2nd year can make the Polyjuice potion correctly, without the lot of you being poisoned, or worse, or—" She stuttered off as she realized Harry was looking beseechingly at her, and the other boys were giving her pitting looks. Lily sighed deeply, took several deep breaths, then continued in far calmer tones, "I'm sorry." Harry smiled at once, clearly holding no grudge. Lily continued, "It's just, I hate that you feel you have to do all of these things. I wish you had someone there who would tell you these things. I wish." She trailed off, then put another stern look on her face and finished, "But I did mean it. I disapprove." I do acknowledge, though, that these are things that have already happened, so I promise I won't yell again." Then she paused, hesitated for a moment, and added, "About this particular thing," causing all of her boys to burst out laughing, James saying, "I love your fiery temper." She smiled weakly at them before waving Remus on. He had to get his breath back a bit, but did indeed still read "ooh," Sirius said, going a little wide-eyed. Hermione daring the others into doing this. It was her idea in the first place, Remus reminded him. "What's gotten into her this year?" James asked, bemused. "She's a muggle-born," Lily said in exasperation. Of course she'd be the most worried about this. All four boys turned to her in shock, then blushed slightly. They hadn't forgotten exactly, but Hermione was just so smart it was a little easy to forget. "Not going to answer that, Lily?" James asked. "No," Lily said. "I want to see if Hermione knows first. It'll make me feel better." Lily nodded, looking a mite bit better. Had Hermione tried to rush the potion by any shorter amount of time, she would have been even more worried. "Ron's gotten much better at that," Sirius chuckled. "It's normal to be nervous before any game," James said bracingly. He still had no doubt in his mind Harry and his team would do brilliantly. "Chipper as always," Remus laughed lightly. "Excellent sentiment, though," Sirius beamed. All five of them laughed at that. "Ouch," Remus winced. "Does he pressure you before every match?" "Seems like," Harry shrugged. "But I don't mind." Which he should have anyways, James thought, knowing that wasn't anything of use, but he still wanted to be there for Harry in some way more than a vault. Lily sighed in trepidation. That didn't make her feel any better. She also dearly wanted to comment that this boy took a game far too serious, but didn't want to elicit a joke from Sirius, or even get snapped at for saying this. She had no idea the boys might have agreed with her in that moment. The three boys looked very excited to hear this. They felt like it had been ages since they got to hear about a good game, which didn't involve worrying about Harry dying in the middle of the match. Lily still looked wary. Harry's track record in this game hadn't been that good, but she was willing to relax and hear about this. Harry was the only one looking on edge. They put this down to the pressure he must be feeling, not knowing why Harry would be rubbing his right arm for some reason. "Scarhead," Sirius snorted. "I didn't think his insults could actually get worse." "Most likely," Remus grumbled. Lily shivered in disgust, hating that mental image. Remus' voice grew very confused at the end of that. "What?" Sirius asked, sure he had heard wrong. James began, but he couldn't think of anything to say really. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Harry sighed, rubbing his right arm in remembrance. Lily went a little bug-eyed, but Remus now read on quickly, knowing by now Harry's bad feelings were usually not wrong. "One game," James cried in fury. "I want one bloody Quidditch game that doesn't make me hate the whole bloody sport. Why are you being chased by a bludger?" Sirius said slowly and distinctly, like he was trying to stop himself from yelling like James. "I've no idea," Harry said miserably, very much wondering the same thing. Lily put her face in her hands, wanting dearly to cover her ears as well so she didn't have to hear this. Remus said, "Okay, I officially hate getting Quidditch chapters. Next time, Sirius, I'm just going to give it to you anyways." Sirius didn't look any kind of happy as his friend began in a wobbling voice, the horrid mental image of Sirius being bludgeoned the most prominent thing in his mind. "Thank Merlin for the twins," Sirius sighed. They seemed to have noticed the problem already. "Had enough practice," James muttered darkly. "Who could tamper with a thing like that?" Lily moaned, her face still in her hands. "I know those are very powerfully charmed. It would take some real magic to pull this stunt off." Thinking it was Lockhart, Remus asked weakly, "Are we still wondering if he's faking it? I kind of gave up on that after the werewolf incident." "No, he's still an idiot in my book until proven otherwise," Sirius sighed miserably. "And there's no way Malfoy, or any student for that matter, could be powerful enough to do this." Stumped, and with no leads who could do this, Remus forced himself to continue. "You didn't put a repelling charm on them?" James asked distractedly. "That's like the only charm any player's allowed to use, exclusive to the face only, of course. Otherwise the rain will blind you." "No," Harry said. No one had shown him how to do that. Perhaps Wood thought he knew how to anyways. "Well, that's just peachy." Sirius groaned, not even having wondered about the game anymore now that Harry was in real danger of getting hurt. Again, "I don't care," Lily yelped. "You're much safer being surrounded by them." The boys nodded in firm agreement, Remus asking, Why hasn't anyone called a timeout yet? Clearly something's wrong. Harry sighed in defeat, knowing full well no one called this particular game off. Then why wasn't the game cancelled? Lily ground out in frustration. Because Quidditch isn't cancelled, not for anything, James sighed, for once in his life wishing the opposite. But it's obvious something's wrong, Lily still tried, but was cut off by Sirius reminding. Same was true of Harry's first game and that broom, and no one called it off then, even if they'd been given the chance. Quidditch just isn't cancelled, Lily. She sighed in disappointment, but stopped arguing the point in favor of hearing how Harry survived this. Props for multitasking, Harry laughed, but he was the only one who did. Did it follow you onto the ground? James asked. No, Harry said, but it circled around me like some bird in the air. All four of them shivered, hating that mental image and still unable to come up with a person who could do this. That's what he's concerned about, James yelped. I'm really starting to dislike this kid, Sirius growled. He didn't notice, Harry said quickly, not liking that mean look that was flickering across their faces. Saving my son's life, Lily hissed, only slightly forgiving the comment because of what Harry said. Did anyone else notice? Remus asked. Not really, Harry sighed. I think they noticed a bit more after this time out, but no one stops this game. All of them looked beyond angry. Really? Sirius yelped. That's your plan. At least let them pretend to do their job. Harry shook his head furiously, saying, No, I could handle it. I did handle it, mostly. He finished lamely at their astounded looks. Harry, James said weakly, a game isn't worth your head being knocked off. I know, Harry tried to butt in, but Lily interrupted first. If you do, then why are you so insistent about this? I don't want our team to lose another match, Harry said furiously. I didn't get a chance at the tournament last year, and if we called a time off, it would be over for us again. I handled this just fine, and he sucked in a deep breath as he said with confidence, I won us the match, finishing with a horrible wince of pain for having dared to tempt his memories. The four of them exchanged unhappy looks, but finally admitted there was nothing for it. If he said he could handle it, who were they to argue? Least it would be impressive if you pulled off a Plumpton pass, Sirius muttered without any real emphasis. All of them knew they weren't going to be happy until this nightmare of a game was over. Remus winced as he read that, not liking that mental image repeated. Sirius pursed his lips, dearly wishing to agree, but knowing it might offend Harry. If the determined look on his face was any indication, he made a good call. James muttered mutinously, knowing full well as team captain himself once, he would never have made that call. I do not see how this is funny, Lily snapped in disgust. At least you're dodging. Who cares how it looks? Sirius muttered. All four of them shuddered in disgust again, knowing that wasn't going to get any better no matter how many times it was said. Sirius was far too keyed up to make a comment on that lame joke. James smiled meanly, feeling a slight bit better at this jerk who was more than likely going to get his comeuppance, and a face full of bludger if Harry went for it. So we were right, James said, trying vainly to change the subject to happier topics. He's a rubbish player. I'll bet Harry never loses a match against him, Sirius agreed. Remus choked, bug-eyed, as he spat that out. Harry was rubbing his right arm in remembered pain and said, It hurt. I'm not going to say it didn't, but it's just a break. Nothing worse than that. They nodded. Taking a deep breath, Remus kept going. I don't think I want Harry on the Quidditch team anymore, Lily thought sadly, though decided to keep that to herself since she thought the boys might get mad at her. Actually, the other three boys did agree. Harry didn't seem able to go a single game without something life-threatening happening. It made him too easy of a target, apparently. It didn't hit, Harry reassured at once, when they all looked ashen. Credit for determination anyways, James sighed. Not a bad idea, Sirius nodded, using this as a distraction from the idea of Harry's arm dangling useless at his side. Remus stopped here to shake his head in wonder at his cub. You can now tell people you can catch a snitch with one arm tied behind your back, he told him. Sirius smacked him hard. Ouch, what? You two can make jokes, but I can't. No, Sirius shrugged. I just really wanted a reason to smack you back for all the times you've done it to me. Taking away my joke was just a good excuse. Lily smiled indulgently at them, almost envious of their ability to joke around while being equally as worried. Everyone coped in their own way, she supposed. How did that work out for you? Lily asked uneasily. I think I lost conscious for a few seconds, Harry shrugged. I wake back up, and it's still raining on me anyways. Lily nodded, slightly content with that. I'm going to laugh if that was all just a dream, James chuckled. His son never ceased to amuse him. He's had some vivid dreams before, Sirius agreed. Hopefully he'll wake up with a teacher over him, waiting to heal his arm, Lily grumbled, still unpleased with the whole scenario, even if her son came away perfectly fine. Oh no, Remus groaned, planting his forehead against the book in genuine pain at what could possibly happen next. I didn't mean him, Lily yelped. I meant McGonagall. Next time when you're hoping for something, be name specific, James grumbled. He knows exactly what he's saying, Sirius growled. You never seem to, though, Remus huffed. Sirius gave him a confused look, unsure if his friend was making a joke at him or Lockhart, but Remus wasn't going to answer. No, all five of them yelped in real fear. That moron can't handle a pixie. I don't want to even think what would happen if he tried that, Lily hissed. With any luck, a puff of smoke will escape, Sirius said. Then he'll make up some lame excuse and prattle Harry's ear off up to the hospital wing. Harry was still rubbing his arm in remembrance. He had a bad feeling about this. He knew one thing: his arm stopped hurting after Lockhart's spell. It wasn't for a good reason, though. The three boys chuckled weakly. Why would you take a photo of that? Lily asked in disgust. Kid's going to make a great photographer one of these days, Remus smiled. He's certainly not squeamish. That wasn't my point, Harry huffed. Because he's a pompous, big-headed, arrogant, Sirius began, while Lily finally cut him off, saying, Sirius, I'm sure you can keep going for a year, but I want to hear this. I really hate agreeing with him, James grumbled, thinking Wood was too happy for the circumstances. You could be happy about winning after all of your players were healed up. Whoever cursed that thing, I'm going to curse them into oblivion, James vowed. Harry wondered why his automatic reaction was to correct his dad. Or would he want to defend whoever did this? Geez, wonder which team he was supporting, Sirius said vaguely. That's not the feeling you should have, Lily said, real fear creeping into her as she wondered what this inept idiot had done to her son. Wish it had said the spell he tried, Remus muttered, because I'd like to use it on him. He said Brachia Harry offered brightly, knowing full well Lockhart deserved whatever his family was thinking up, though still having an issue with remembering why. That's actually a real spell, Lily said in surprise. So why isn't the feeling he's having the right one? James said uneasily. Lily bit her lip before waving Remus on, trying to figure that out herself. Well, Lily began again, thinking out loud now. I know that if you don't have enough magical ability to perform a spell properly, it often does the opposite effect. That's why you don't walk in trying to do seventh-year spells. Lily explained that part for Harry's benefit. So if this dolt hasn't built up enough of an ability to perform this spell correctly. She trailed off, puzzling. What would be the opposite of mending broken bones? I don't want to find out, James sighed as Remus read on, now a little curious himself. And having an abundance of faith Madame Pomfrey could fix it if, most likely, Lockhart simply broke the bone further. Then, of course, he'd just have to hurt Lockhart all the more for prolonging Harry's pain. That can't be a good sign, Sirius muttered. Lily perked up in surprise. Perhaps Harry just had a unique reaction to the spell. Not a good sign at all, James agreed. Tidy him up, Remus asked. What does that even mean? Fix his screw-up, Harry muttered. You remember what happened? James asked quickly. No, Harry sighed, knowing he wasn't going to be able to hold the memory until the book said it. But I know it wasn't good. Did he remove your arm or something? Lily yelped. Harry opened and closed his mouth several times, but now that he seemed to actually remember what he saw, he didn't seem able to spit it out. Remus read quickly now. There was a muscle twitching in Sirius' jaw as he finally realized what had happened. Remus looked like he really was going to pass out. James and Lily refused to react until Remus flat out read. He's dead, James vowed. He is officially a dead man. He spluttered out, most likely to outrage to finish his sentence. What I find most interesting, Remus said through gritted teeth, is how he managed to switch those spells. You're supposed to stop making those kinds of mistakes at fourth year at the latest. What spell did he actually use? Harry asked. It's called Accio Dispersimus, James said. Only used in the most severe crisis, when the bones can't be mended for some reason or another, and you have to temporarily take them out. So they will grow back, Harry said eagerly. His family didn't seem that concerned about this. Oh, yes, Lily said at once. Take a bit of skill grow, and your bones will come right back. Harry nodded, then still deciding he was curious, asked, "How would you switch spells like that?" "It's a rookie mistake," James snorted, "but something that can happen when you start learning spells, and then counter spells. If you aren't concentrating on the spell you're intending to use, you can accidentally cause another spell to happen." "I'm not surprised," Sirius huffed. "That idiot can't focus on anything but his reflection. He shouldn't be trying any spells. Just proves his incompetence all the more," Harry shrugged. "Not that anyone should have needed it." Still furious, but calmed slightly by the subsequent discussion, they were all willing to keep going without shouting death threats, for now. "You!" Sirius wrinkled up his nose at the mental image. "I've never heard of anyone doing that after the age of 16, Remus sniffed. "By that time, any idiot can master the concept of focusing on one spell at a time." "Can't believe Hermione is still sticking up for him," Lily sighed. "Gross," James grumbled. Now it was Harry's turn to wrinkle up his nose in disgust at the remembered taste of that. "What did it taste like?" Sirius asked. He'd never known anyone who had to take it. "Nothing you'd ever tasted before or wanted again," Harry grumbled. "The worst part is, I can't even argue with her this time," Remus sighed. "Sorry, Harry," Lily sighed. "I just don't see him being able to do that. Those bludgers are charmed especially so that they can't be tampered with. No student should be able to get past that." Harry nodded, agreeing with his mom's opinion even without the feelings reinforcing that she was right. "Sadly not." James wrinkled his nose in disgust. "I had to take some once, or a training protocol and all, and it doesn't matter who you change into. The stuff is awful." "Gee, thanks, Dad," Harry said. "With any luck he'll get kicked off the team," Sirius said brightly, finally finding something good about this match. "Her intentions are good, honestly," Remus sighed. "But if I'm ever told to rest again, I really will smack someone." James and Sirius exchanged smiles, knowing full well they had never indulged in Pomfrey's rules. They had always used James' cloak and snuck down to see Remus, and they wondered if Ron and Hermione would do the same. "Ouch," they all muttered, not liking that description one bit. "Hermione?" James asked, sounding more confused than confident. "Why would she be there?" Lily asked. "Because these two knuckleheads were thinking Harry's friends would sneak in to see him," Remus offered, "but I think Hermione doing that is a little odd." "I think it just proves all the more how much she likes Harry," Sirius snipped, giving Harry a look he didn't understand one bit. "Of course Hermione liked him, they were friends." "Darby!" they yelped in surprise. "What's he doing there?" Remus added on. "What's he doing there?" James repeated when Harry looked uneasily around the room, his dad's voice coming out between gritted teeth as he guessed what Harry was thinking now. "Ah, why are you asking me?" he finally said. "I've no idea." All four of them grumbled a bit, having a really bad feeling about this. The last time Darby had been around, it hadn't been very pleasant, and they were just as weary this time. "Wait," Sirius said. "So does that mean, did Darby have something to do with paralyzing Mrs. Norris?" "What makes you think that?" James asked. "He's trying to scare Harry into leaving. I'm wondering if he might have pulled that stunt to keep that going," Sirius shrugged. "No," Remus said, going a little pale, "but you're on the right track, I think. What if Darby was trying to scare Harry away from the school because he knew something like this might happen? A house? Elf knew a cat would be paralyzed." James asked in disbelief. "It's not out of the realm of possibilities," Lily agreed with Remus. "Well then, who paralyzed the cat and is making Harry hear a voice?" Sirius asked, throwing his hands up in frustration. They were pretty well into this book by now, and still had no real suspect. All five of them sighed, letting it go for now. "Well, guess I was right," Remus sighed, not looking very happy. Yes, that does tend to happen sometimes," Sirius scoffed. "Now I just want to know if I was right about why he did," Remus huffed, ignoring Sirius so that he could read. "That's kind of creepy," James muttered, "find it much less endearing than a girl that was a friend of Harry's." "It's like he adopted Harry," Sirius nodded. "If Darby didn't have a family of his own and Harry was of age, Harry could possibly bind Darby to his family line." "Is that really how it works?" Lily asked. "It's more complicated than just saying it," Sirius smirked at her, "but something along those lines." Lily huffed, unable to decide if he was being sarcastic, and none of the boys were helping. "How?" Lily asked in disbelief. "Exactly how powerful are house elves?" "Very," Sirius said with a straight face. They're probably the most powerful magical creature that exist, which is why they were enslaved by wizards so many years ago. How were they enslaved if they're so powerful? Harry asked. That's a long, really ugly history on the wizard part, Remus said. We'll try and explain that later. Harry nodded in content for now. Lily winced in sympathy for the poor thing all over again, though honestly thinking she was still annoyed at him being the cause of all of Harry's problems this year. Also proves my earlier point, James nodded. He clearly has no idea how things work if he thought the train was the only way to get to school. Lily's lower lip quivered in real pain for this creature now, saying, I feel like an arse. How are there not laws in place to prevent this kind of thing? It's not your fault, Lily, James said at once. Exactly how many people are involved in that type of thing, and none of them have said a word either. Besides, Sirius shrugged, I doubt there's anything you could do. Pass as many laws as you like. House elves belong to their owners. You can't control the way they're treated. Lily fired up at once, snapping, like you can't control the way people treat animals or their own children. There are laws to prevent that kind of abuse. You see house elves as less than them. Sirius' superior look faltered for the first time. He disagreed with nearly every aspect of his parents' life, but the one thing he'd never had a problem with was their treatment of Creature. He was a vile thing, hateful and spiteful to the extreme, to him anyways. So whenever he saw him being punished, never bothering to learn the reasons, he'd had no problems. Never having met any other house elves besides the ones at Hogwarts, who he'd given about as much attention as the ghosts into their free time outside of politely giving him food, he had no reason to think otherwise about the species as a whole. Darby certainly hadn't changed his mind so far. He was being an absolute arse trying to keep Harry out of school. Now, at Lily's words, he suddenly thought of Harry at Privet Drive again, no one taking the time to care what happened to him. Harry had tried comparing his life to Darby's, and Sirius had scoffed at the idea. There couldn't be any similarities, right? He shook off his feelings and snapped at Remus to keep going, ignoring the curious looks from everyone else at what exactly had him quiet for so long. Wow, I kind of forgive him, Remus said sadly. This is just sad. James and Lily both nodded. Sirius crossed his arms and said nothing. Surely the elf was just trying to get Harry to pity him. Harry went a little cross-eyed for a moment, hating that feeling of significance that was gone as soon as he tried to understand why. His bludger, Sirius roared. He tried to break your head open. Sirius, you said you wouldn't add him to your kill list, Harry said weakly. Whatever he did remember, Darby's got the right intentions, I think. This calmed the others slightly. They were still angry, but they had promised not to take it out on Darby. He must have a reason for this if Harry said so. Sirius, though, was still furious. He'd only agreed to that because he thought Darby wouldn't make another appearance, that his worst thing he'd done was make Harry's life even more miserable at the Dursleys, more than enough reason to warrant his fury, but he had given Harry the benefit of the doubt in pitying the creature. Besides, it not being his house elf, he couldn't do anything about it anyways. Now he was determined to find out whose elf this was, and silently planning on doing something to the stupid little thing. Maybe not kill him, he'd keep that promise, but he would never take anything threatening his godson's life without taking revenge back. What did he think was going to happen when he aimed a weighted ball at your head? Remus demanded. Ugh, Harry said lamely. He had no response for that. So he intended to send you home limbless. James yelped in disgust. I don't care what the elf thinks, Lily huffed. If you couldn't be helped at the school, you would have been sent to St. Mungo's, healed there, and then come back to school. Like Dad said, Harry shrugged. Darby doesn't know how this stuff works. That's getting old, James muttered. If he answers that, I actually will forgive him, Remus huffed in agitation. Clearly Darby knew something he wasn't telling. Why would that be? James asked curiously. People would treat their house, elves the same without Voldemort being around. More of Darby not having a clue what's going on, Sirius muttered in disgust. Lily gave him a scathing look. She had thought she'd seen for just a moment something pass across his face. Now it was gone, and he looked as surely as any other time elves were mentioned. Once more, James asked in surprise. When was it opened before? I've never heard of that, Sirius agreed. Wish we had, Remus sighed. We might have got more clues where it is. Are you lot crazy? Lily yelped in disgust. The monster that's supposedly in there doesn't bother you. Nah, Sirius said. That's probably just fake to scare people away from finding it. Slytherin might have hid something really valuable there, and I want to know what. So here's hoping Harry might find it, James said, going bright-eyed for a moment. I want to slap all of you, she sighed, rubbing at her own temple. Harry fought back the urge to agree with his mother. This elf is weird, James said. I don't get why that was a secret. Well, since we didn't know about it, I'd say it isn't widely known, Sirius shrugged. Wonder what happened before, Remus said thoughtfully. That's another good point, Lily nodded. His statues should protect him. Why is Darby so freaked over Harry in particular? No good reason, Harry sighed. So he knows then, Remus said, raising a brow in surprise. Geez, I really want to know who Darby's owner is, Sirius said, ulterior motives aside. He just knew that this elf's owner would somehow be important for Darby to be knowing all of this. Probably for the best, Lily said sadly. He clearly couldn't tell you anything, or if he let something slip out, he beat the crap out of himself. Here's hoping he doesn't come back, Sirius muttered. Remus stopped right there, glancing up briefly at the others who all looked as scared as he felt. A statue, Lily whimpered, like a human-sized statue. Harry nodded dumbly, knowing full well he wasn't going to like what Remus was fixing to read. Please tell me it was Lockhart, Sirius said weakly. Remus sucked in a deep breath before reading. Him, Lily yelped. On the stairs, James said with unease. It wasn't Ron, was it? No, Harry said with confidence. Stop interrupting me, Remus huffed. I want to know who it is. The married couple went silent at the rebuke. All five of them shivered in disgust, hoping dearly McGonagall was wrong. Bloody hell, Sirius groaned. That poor kid, Lily whispered. Who would attack him, though? Remus asked, running one hand through his hair in frustration. Everyone hates Mrs. Norris and Filch, but who has a grudge against a first year? Maybe it's random, James offered. Or it really is someone against Muggleborns, Sirius said, fidgeting a bit and hoping he was wrong. Still can't tell a Muggleborn just by looking at them, James disagreed. So unless someone knew Colin, that shouldn't matter. I still want to know how, Remus asked when it appeared they still had no new leads on the first question. The only thing that can petrify people like that is a Gorgon. I refuse to believe one is getting in and out of that school without being noticed. They all sighed as they realized, despite a new victim, they had no more answers than before, and in fact more questions. My question is, what's the point? James grumbled. This can't all just be to scare the students. There must be an end game to this. Let us know if you figure it out, Harry said miserably. I thought Dumbledore said McGonagall found him on the stairs. Sirius asked, trying to distract himself again. What did she really fear she couldn't handle whatever on her own? Would you want to handle this on your own? Remus shuddered. Do Gorgons eat people or something? Harry asked. They're not known to, Remus shook his head. They're not categorized as beasts anyways. They haven't been known to make any appearance at any congregation of our kind, so very little is known about their habits. They're found in Greece, Sirius added. There's never even been a sighting of them here. Now that's interesting, James said thoughtfully. Has anyone ever brought out Muggle things to see what happens when a Gorgon stares at it? Don't even think about it, Lily snapped at once. I don't even want to think of you lot out there trying those kinds of stunts. The boys all huffed in annoyance, Sirius saying, I told you Lily would be a killjoy. Be nice, James said at once. She just means she doesn't want to hear about it because she wants to come. Isn't that right, Lily Flower? Lily looked to the ceiling as if praying for patience, and Remus took that as his cue to keep going. Harry felt like he was going to be sick again, but he was learning to control the feeling the more it went on. It wasn't a Gorgon, his instincts were sure of this, but he refused to allow another memory to blast him again. They clearly scared his family, so he would just have to wait and see to find out what it really was, and in the meantime, ask as many questions as it took to take his mind off this pain. Lily was tempted to point out that under normal circumstances, that would have ruined the film, but this was a magically imbued camera, so perhaps there were charms in place to protect this. Either way, she didn't know cameras that well, and didn't want to delay in pointing this out to the others. Well, that answers that question, Sirius said, a little disappointed. I'm surprised Colin would have still gotten petrified, though, Remus said thoughtfully. After all, the only surefire way to not be hurt by the Gorgon's look is to only look at their reflection. I guess looking through a lens wouldn't count. Again, something more to test, James grinned. Lily twitched, and James automatically flinched back like he thought she was going to slap him again. Lily instead smoothed some hair back from her face, exposing a vindictive smile. How does he work that out? Lily asked grumpily, more than sick of this whole school being so vague this year. I wonder, Remus pondered, having noted something about a monster within the chamber earlier. It didn't really add up, though. What are you thinking, Moony? James asked. He shook himself and said, Let me finish this chapter. It's only a bit left, then I'll explain. That's what we want to know, Lily grumbled. Okay, Remus, how? James demanded. Actual favorite chapter of this book. I tell even though no one asked. Chapter 11. The Dueling Club. Chapter text Remus was still puzzling, and knowing better than to interrupt him, Sirius instead said, I think he's thinking it's no longer a Gorgon. Why? Lily asked. It was the only reasonable explanation to her. Something Binns said, Remus said, going cross-eyed a bit as he continued to categorize everything he knew about this situation so far. I'm just wondering, well, of course it would sweet Slytherin, but how could it be? And he trailed off into more mutterings. Harry took a leaf out of Ron's book and said, If in a month or so you feel like explaining, you will let us know. He couldn't deny how eager he felt to hear another answer, since he was so sure the Gorgon one was wrong. Not going to happen, Harry, James said sadly. He's going to be like this until he works it out in his own way. Are we supposed to wait for him? Lily asked as she got up and took the book from Remus herself. Lily's actions startled Remus out of his reverie, and he looked about himself before smiling weakly and saying, Just puzzling out some things. Nothing still makes enough sense, though. At least tell us why you think it isn't a Gorgon, Harry asked. Because if it was, there are several actions the teachers could take to prevent that. I'm sure they would have after Mrs. Norris, so how did this happen again? But what else could petrify people and cats like this? Sirius asked. I'm working on that, Remus reassured. And I will let you know before the month's up, he finished, grinning at Harry. Harry blushed, not realizing Remus had even been listening, while his friends laughed at the pair. Lily read on sadly, very scared and upset now. If Remus, the guy who seemed to know everything there was to know about magical creatures, didn't know right away what was running around the school, she was honestly terrified to hear the answer. That's hardly going to stop the rest of the school from figuring it out, Sirius said in disbelief. Appreciate the thought, though, Remus said. Ha! All 5 of them muttered. Wonder where they got to, James said in surprise. Surprised they weren't down there to check on Harry, Sirius corrected. I'm sure they are, Remus said, not able to come up with a good reason. Harry frowned, trying not to feel hurt his friends didn't seem to care about whether his arm had grown back. Lily felt bad for Harry, clearly having a good guess at what he was thinking, and knowing full well his friends would have a good reason, so decided to read. He makes that seem like such a bad thing, James said, grinning brightly. Personally, I'm offended none of us ever thought of that. Of course, Lily said, ignoring her husband. They went to go check on the Polyjuice potion. They might have thought you would get out later, so they went there first. Harry smiled, looking far more relaxed now. What makes you think they would brew the Polyjuice potion in there? Sirius asked. They've already established it's a secluded place no one goes in, she shrugged. As good a place as any, really. I can think of some better ones, Remus disagreed. And they've already been caught in there by Filch and Percy, James added. Well, let's just see then, she said. Okay, fine, Sirius sighed, speaking for the boys, but our points still stand. We hadn't explored as much as you guys seemed to, Harry said with a shrug, so it seemed like a good idea to us. Subtle, James snorted. Explains why they got a start on the potion all the more, though, Remus said. Now students really are getting attacked. It would freak them out all the more. Freaks me out, Lily agreed. Would make a good motive if Malfoy could pull it off, Sirius said sadly. Again, applaud the logic he's trying, James said sadly. But as there's never been another reported instance of a student being petrified like this, I don't see it happening. Can't even begin to figure that out, Remus agreed with a huff. No, Lily said slowly. The times Harry's heard it, he heard it going up. Invisible doesn't equal intangibility. Which don't petrify, Remus sighed, which is what I'm mostly stuck on. My sentiments exactly, James sighed, unable to decide which he was more annoyed by right now, Harry's savior this year or this mysterious monster. Those poor dears, Lily said sadly. Imagine you being a first year there, and even a muggle born to boot. School never even got that bad for us, James agreed, and they had grown up in the epitome of Voldemort's reign. Well, this can't be good, Sirius said brightly. Sirius couldn't help but chuckle at those antics. It did seem like fun indeed. Honestly, Sirius, even you never tried to scare first years, Lily snapped. No, he agreed, but I would have done it to my baby brother. There's a difference. Why would that scare Regulus? James asked. Why would that scare Ginny? Sirius countered. All right, you too, Remus cut in. Let Lily keep going. Sirius winced slightly. He didn't think it would scare the poor kid that much. Lily made a noise of scathing disgust, saying, probably Lockhart's fault as well. He was the one going on and telling people he made some magical amulet that protected people. It's ridiculous, we all agree, Remus nodded, since I doubt a single thing those students could come up with would keep something like this away. You got any more ideas yet? James asked. Nope, he muttered in annoyance. That poor kid, Lily said miserably. She hated how down Neville seemed to be. There's no such thing as almost a squib, Sirius scoffed. You're either magical or not. Someone ought to smack whoever convinced Neville to get that stuff. Pity that, James said in disgust, knowing full well the little git would have more opportunities now to be a jerk with less people around. Good for us, though, Harry reminded him, since there would be less witnesses around for our polyjuice potion. Lily sighed, still not happy about this. Harry had survived it without major side effects, which meant most likely his friends had to, but it still made her uncomfortable such a young student was attempting such a huge project without supervision. Thank you so much for that mental image, James said, trying to force a laugh. She makes it sound so simple, Remus scoffed. It can be, James offered, an old gleam appearing in his eyes again. Say they don't, Lily said at once. I'd be more than happy not knowing the details of how you can scam stuff away from a teacher. I'd rather see what Harry did. James deflated but nodded his assent. He was curious to that as well. Oh, is that all? Sirius chuckled. Hey, that's the school motto, Remus chuckled. What? Harry asked. Draco Dormiens nunquam titillendus, which translated from Latin means never tickle a sleeping dragon, Remus said brightly. The things you know, honestly, James cackled. So Draco means never. Harry asked. No, it means dragon, Sirius said. Purebloods are often named after the stars, constellations, and galaxies. Sirius is the dog, Draco is the dragon, etc. So glad I got left out of that, James laughed. It's a rough translation. Latin is really hard to do properly, Remus said, trying to get back on topic. Can we move on? Lily giggled at the lot of them before someone else comes up with a lecture worth of comments. Like you would if we kept going, James smirked. Lily blushed, not willing to admit he was probably right. Still a git then, James muttered, having privately enjoyed not having to deal with any of Snape's classes this year. Oh, you're not, Lily began with trepidation. Oh, he is, James disagreed, the opposite emotion playing across his face. That's dangerous, Lily moaned. If he drops that in his own potion, we don't even know if Harry did it right. Being runny could be caused. Mum, Harry said quickly. I didn't throw it in my potion. Lily gave him a wary look before nodding and reading, still fearful. That's 10 times better, James cackled. If I've noticed anything, he's an idiot who doesn't need help making his potion explode. It was even more dangerous that way. Lily disagreed with annoyance, because he could have done something really bad to his potion, and now it's going to get everywhere. Good distraction, though, Sirius grinned at Lily. Lily strangled herself off, remembering her promise not to continue yelling about this. Though to be fair, she wasn't yelling about the stealing part, just the distraction part. Still, sucking in a deep breath, she read. All 4 boys were snickering like children now, while Lily blatantly ignored them. At least Goyle seemed to do his potion right, which was a miracle in itself. Why does he think someone did it? Remus asked, a crazy smile still plastered on his face. Like Prong said, he's stupid enough to blow up his own potion. That's rich coming from you, James said with glee, now eyeing his friend and making Remus wince, since I remember quite well when you— Okay, Remus groaned. Sorry I mentioned it. What? Harry said eagerly. I blew up a potion, Remus huffed, feeling it was obvious but willing to explain for Harry, and only Harry. His friends were gits, and they've never let me live it down. Well, since you did it like once a year, Lily said, you can hardly blame them. Lily, Remus yelped, looking at her in an almost betrayed way. That was for ratting me out about the cat, she smiled sweetly, and it was for Harry's benefit. Harry wasn't listening. He was too busy laughing at them. Remus trailed off into mutterings, his friends catching a few familiar excuses like, "Not my fault I kept falling asleep," but Harry had calmed down and Lily was ready to keep reading. "Wish I could be there to see that," Sirius said with glee. "I love how Harry seems to come up with the best prank ideas, and he doesn't even try," James agreed. "Subtle," James snickered. "Oops," Harry winced, having hoped Snape would go along with his father's line of thinking and not investigate it too much. "You don't get into trouble, do you?" Lily asked in trepidation. "Snape can't prove Harry did it," Sirius disagreed. "When has that ever stopped him?" James huffed. "That's harsh," Remus said. "It was dangerous and stupid, fine, I'll agree, but that's only worth a few detentions." "I will repeat," James said. "When has that ever stopped him from exaggerating?" "That's creepy," Sirius shuddered. "I really wish you'd stop saying that kind of stuff, Harry." Harry shrugged, having a vague feeling his younger self was right, but he had no idea why. "At least you'll be on your guard," James said brightly. "That's an awful idea," Remus cackled. "Why?" Lily said, puzzled. "I think it's a great idea. Honestly, why didn't we ever do that?" "Think about it, Lily," James said in a slow voice. A large abundance of students, all being encouraged to point their wands at each other with minimal to no supervision. Lily pursed her lips and said, "Well, when you put it like that, but I think students should understand how dueling works before they graduate at least." "Nah," Sirius said, still grinning with Remus at the potential for mayhem this could cause. Then he put on a school teacher's voice as he said, "The students are too young to know how the real world works. Enjoy your youth while you can." "Who was that?" Lily asked. "McGonagall," Sirius said, his face dropping slightly when she hadn't caught that right away. "We asked to start a dueling club at the end of our first year, and she said that to me." "Personally," Remus said, still grinning, "I think she just said no to you, and anyone thereafter because it was your idea. I told you I should have been the one to suggest it." Sirius huffed and muttered something inarticulate. "So why do you think it's allowed now?" James asked. All of them shrugged, having no idea about this. "That would be interesting," James snickered. "No," Remus disagreed, "but the person who's supposedly Slytherin's heir and doing this most likely can." "You really know how to kill the mood," Sirius grumbled. "Oh," Lily said brightly, "perhaps it's just a demonstration purpose." "Why would you demonstrate something and expect them not to do it?" Remus disagreed. "Now that is a rumor we started," James grinned. "We got sick of hearing people mock Flitwick behind his back, so we said that. Shut people right up." Sirius agreed. "I'm surprised that's still circulating," Remus grinned. "Well, we found our test dummy," Remus muttered, causing all of them to snicker. "Now this I might actually enjoy," Sirius said, growing bright-eyed. "Most useful thing Snape's ever done, blown that idiot up," James agreed, leaning forward eagerly. "Does he ever go a full hour without mentioning that?" Lily asked in disgust. "If that's not the biggest load of rubbish," Remus sniffed. "Well, he should," James grinned a bit. "Otherwise he would have been the test dummy." "That wasn't funny, James," Lily snapped, flaring up at once. He raised his hands in surrender, mentally thinking that wasn't the brightest thing to say in front of her. "We're not," Sirius said vacantly. "I'm actually torn because I'm rooting for Snape to kill him. It's the weirdest thing ever." "The enemy of my enemy is my friend," Remus said brightly. "I'll take that," James shrugged. "We can only hope," Harry sighed, knowing he had just chuckled then when Ron said it. "Oh, Harry, you really do need this club," Sirius said sadly. "Snape's not that scary." "Maybe to you four," Lily huffed, "but he's how much older than Harry?" That made the three boys fidget while Harry smirked at his mom. "Wouldn't count on that," James muttered, knowing full well Snape wasn't known for holding back. James beamed at Harry, more than pleased he had mimicked his son or vice versa, whichever. Harry startled a bit. He knew that spell for some reason. It meant something really important to him. Why this spell in particular, though? "Wow," Remus said in surprise. "He only tried to disarm him. Nicest spell he's ever used, I'm sure," Sirius sniped. "Ha!" all five of them said with glee. "This is one time in my life I'm actually happy Snape cursed someone." James crowed with glee. Lily rolled her eyes at them again. "You mean you didn't join in?" Sirius asked. "We weren't going to be cheering for Snape," Harry said, "but we were certainly clapping," which caused them to laugh again. "Agreed," the three boys also said together. "Exactly how many times can he pretend he knows what he's doing?" Remus asked in disbelief. "Please let Snape cut his hair off. Please let Snape cut his hair off." Sirius started chanting. "Bummer," they all muttered, having rather enjoyed the spectacle. Now he's just starting trouble, James said in disgust. Harry can beat him no problem, Sirius said at once. I'm not doubting that, James nodded in agreement, but Snape's just lost any points I would have given him for that Lockhart stunt. The three boys made choking noises to hold back their laughter, something Lily noticed, though she smiled grimly pleased they had tried to hold back at all. Smart pup, Sirius nodded. Right, James drew the word out in disbelief. What a little cozener, Sirius muttered. Lily winced in disgust, that horrid mental image of her sister trying to do the same thing back at once, but she pushed past the hazy Reed vision so she could read how Harry reacted. That was being kind, Remus said, still grinning at Harry's brilliant reaction timing. You're a natural, James beamed. What? Sirius yelped. No, now's the time to disarm him like Snape did to Lockhart. Harry said, sorry, it just didn't occur to me. Well, you've got potential, we'll work on it, James said, still grinning. That's the best he's got, Remus scoffed. Honestly, all of you, Lily said. Can't you just be happy they're not trying to kill each other? The boys didn't even bother to look sheepish. They were enjoying this too much. As much of a prat as Malfoy had been all year, here they were in a sanctioned opportunity to get some payback. They only wished Harry would take a little more advantage than this. Thank goodness there's one grown-up around, Lily muttered. I keep forgetting about that. Sirius snickered. Did you ever find out what his wand had done? Made some kind of foul-smelling gas. Seamus was about to throw up before Snape did that, Harry said. I really hope he gets a new one, at least over the summer, Lily sighed. He can't keep that thing for the rest of school. I want to know why another teacher hasn't said something by now, Remus puzzled. That can't be allowed, or even safe. It's not really the teacher's job, though, James said back with a frown. After all, what can they do? Make the Weasleys buy him a new wand. Remus sighed, but agreed it couldn't really be helped. Oi, Harry hooted in indignation. Now how did that happen? Remus asked. Dean told us later, Harry grumbled, now remembering that vividly. Hermione did disarm Millicent, and she charged at Hermione instead. Guess Hermione didn't react in time. Well, props for thinking on her feet anyways, Lily said weakly, speaking about both girls. I really wish I could have been there to see that, Sirius sighed. Did that just occur to you? James scoffed. I'll faint if he even knows how to, Remus griped. Dang, why does he seem to hate Neville as much as you? Sirius asked with a scowl in place, adding this nearly as much as if he'd said that about Harry. Harry opened his mouth to answer, but it was gone as soon as he had tried to start. So he shrugged and slumped back, instead saying, Guess he just hates everyone. Lily muttered something indistinctly. She hated how rude Save was being to a child in public. I'm okay with this, James nodded. Malfoy owes a few more curses sent his way. Whatever he just showed you, do the opposite, Remus said. Harry nodded in agreement, not even needing to remember what Lockhart said to know Remus knew better. All five of them laughed meanly, Remus loudest of all. He hadn't realized his advice would be taken so literally. Your mouth is a little overused, James grumbled. He never showed you anything to begin with, Sirius yelped. Snape really creeped me out just then, Harry defended. Lockhart doesn't deserve that title, Remus muttered to himself. Sirius heard him and gave his friend a sympathetic look, knowing exactly why Remus would feel so angry about this. Like I said, Remus nodded, the opposite of what he did. I still don't know how to counter, though, Harry sighed. Then duck, Sirius shrugged. What? They all yelped in shock. What's that going to do? Harry asked uneasily. It conjures a snake, Lily moaned in fear. From nothing, Harry asked. I thought you said that was seventh-year magic. Most likely, Snape had one nearby, which is what he was whispering to Malfoy, Sirius said uneasily. The spell doesn't actually make a snake out of nothing, it summons the nearest one. Why would Snape even have a snake nearby? Harry asked in disbelief. You can use their venoms in certain potions, Lily muttered. Oh, Harry deflated. That wasn't out of normal then for a potions teacher to be using something like that. So how would I even get rid of that? A banishing spell, James shrugged, looking as upset as the others. But since you might not know that yet, Snape most likely told Malfoy to do that, just so he could scare you. Then he'll get rid of it himself. At this explanation, they all still were giving each other very weary looks. Harry didn't understand what the big deal was, so he finally asked, Okay, so why are you all looking like something really bad is about to happen? Harry, don't you remember the last time you ran into a snake? Remus asked cautiously. Harry grinned. Looking back, that memory was hilarious, and so he agreed verbally, then he faltered at once as he also remembered how upset his family had been. He thought back to how scared and worried they were, and that feeling he'd gotten that many people had once looked at him in the same way, because he was a Parselmouth. Now, a snake had appeared in front of most of the school, and if he started talking to it again, well, that would explain his memory. Harry now grimaced, looking as upset as the rest of them. "Did anybody ever figure out why I was a Parselmouth?" Harry asked. "You said it's only passed down from the family line." "No," James said sadly. "I've no idea why you can." "It doesn't mean anything to us, though, dear," Lily said, as Harry's feelings were clearly sinking even lower. Harry sighed before waving his mother on, deciding they may as well get this over with. "Jerk," James said with more heat than he normally would have, now fully blaming Snape for what he knew was about to happen to his son. "You can't blame Severus for this," Lily said at once. "He didn't know. He did this to mess with Harry," Sirius snarled, "and it's going to be awful. It doesn't matter what he intended. He's trying to help Filch's cat." Lily spat, finally using that trump card. "He doesn't hold grudges like you seem to." "Oh, please," Remus scoffed. "He hates Harry because of James. If that isn't holding a grudge, I don't know what is." Lily opened her mouth to continue arguing, but Harry cut in saying, "Please, I want to know what happened." "Mom, Snape does hate me, you can't deny that. Dad, he didn't cause what was about to happen on purpose. Please, can't we just get past this?" Both parents deflated, muttering their assent. Sirius and Remus were eyeing Harry with shock, not having believed anything could get those two to stop arguing like that. Then again, they'd never tried very hard, always having sided with James whenever Lily began her attack. "Bloody hell," Sirius hissed, switching his anger from Snape to Lockhart at once. "That twat's probably just going to summon another snake." "Nope," James shook his head sadly. "He's just going to make it unbanishable." "Here I thought he couldn't get dumber," Remus muttered, hating to be proven wrong. All five of them winced, knowing full well what was about to happen. Harry would never stand by and allow that to happen. Whether he recognized his ability to talk to snakes or not, they had no doubt he would act on his previous experience with the scaled beasts. "Guess you never mentioned that boa constrictor to Ron then," James sighed. If he had, Ron would have explained to Harry about what had just happened. "Nope," Harry said sadly. "It never occurred to me. I thought it wasn't even a big deal. A common reaction, learning certain things about people." Remus winced. "So he killed the snake." Lily thought, thinking that was a little harsh, but unable to think what other effect could cause a snake that was now unbanishable to disappear in a puff of black smoke. Still, she was far more concerned with what was about to happen to her son, so she didn't bring it up. "Guess Ron decided to get him out of there," Sirius nodded. "Probably scared the crap out of him as well, though," James said sadly. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous," Harry said weakly, as his family was still looking rather scared. Lily sighed. She knew she wasn't going to like what was about to happen to Harry at school, but she forced herself to keep reading. "Can't they have heard?" Harry asked. "No," James shook his head. "I've never heard a Parselmouth in action, but apparently all we can hear is hissing." Harry went a little paler as he said, "I didn't even realize it didn't sound that way to me. I thought I was just talking to it, and it could understand me. How could I have?" He trailed off, looking even more upset than before now. "We don't know Harry," Lily sighed, running a hand lovingly through his hair, "but I want you to remember that we don't care, nor will your real friends. It's just startling is all." Harry nodded, leaning into her touch for a moment before letting her go on. More annoyed than ever he didn't know the answer to this. Harry did the same thing now. Great, if the whole school had been thinking it before, now they were going to be convinced he was the heir of Slytherin. Sirius said loudly, "So why did the other symbols get picked?" Trying to distract Harry again. Lily answered, "Lions are very proud creatures, known for their bravery. Eagles known for their sight, and Ravenclaw isn't always necessarily intelligence so much as learning to see. Badgers are homely animals. They protect their own and their home, but don't seek out fights. The fact that snakes are known as a cunning animal probably made Slytherin like the animal all the more." Harry was distracted, listening to his mother. The others knew Harry had been thinking exactly the same thing as them, but since they all knew it was preposterous, they didn't want Harry dwelling on it too much. Remus also offered, "I've also heard rumor that those were their patronesses as well, which is why they favored those animals." Harry was instantly distracted now, furrowing up his brow as he tried to remember why he might know what a patroness was. He didn't ask out loud, though, deciding to deal with one thing at a time. Now that Harry seemed a little calmer again, Lily was willing to read. "He's not," James began viciously. "He's as much related as Ron." "Why doesn't Ron? It's okay," Lily said at once. "Ron knows that too. He's just making jokes like you lot always do." James deflated, looking slightly apologetic. Harry smiled and told his dad he didn't blame him, and in fact thanked him for the defense. Both James and Sirius huffed and muttered some things about all purebloods, but Lily didn't stop to hear this again. James made a pitiful noise somewhere in his throat. He hated this. Hated not being there for his son, not being able to comfort him when he clearly was upset about this. Harry didn't have anyone to turn to but him. Even Hagrid, and clearly not Ron, could comfort Harry about this matter. Harry gave him a small, encouraging smile, and James forced himself to return it, though it quickly faded away as Lily kept going. "I haven't been this depressed since Christmas of your last year," Sirius groaned, looking pale as snow himself. "What is it about you and holidays? All the worst stuff happens on the best days." Harry shrugged, saying weakly, "It wasn't quite Christmas yet." No one looked very comforted. Remus sighed, rather puzzled, since Harry didn't recognize the difference anyways, if that was true or not, and having no way to find out, just let it go. "Not necessarily true," James said weakly. "Your blood really doesn't have much to do with your house. It's more to do with your potential for learning." "Oh," Lily said briskly, forcing a teasing tone into her voice. "So you're allowed to explain how the hat works, but when I do, it's not relevant." "No," Sirius said, brightening at once at what looked like a new topic. "We said we didn't want to hear it then, because we wanted to know what house Harry's in. Now go right ahead, educate us on hat magic." Lily grinned at him but said innocently, "Surely you don't need me to tell you. You seem to know plenty on your own." "You're right," Sirius nodded. "I do know. Plus, I still don't care." Harry let out a burst of laughter at their vain attempt at cheering him up, which had clearly worked. Though considering the friends he had, he seemed to be used to light bickering by now. "It wanted to put you in all the houses," Lily reminded him. "You were just brave enough to say otherwise, hence Gryffindor." Harry nodded, feeling far better now than he had then. "I agree," Remus said at once. "I wasn't even there, and I realized after Harry spoke to it, the snake backed off. But you saw it from my point of view," Harry pointed out in a far calmer voice than they would have guessed. To the rest of the school, it might have looked like that. "Why are you arguing for the school now, but not then?" Sirius asked, waving at the book. Harry shrugged and said, "I was mad then. Now not so much. Guess I should thank you guys for that." All four of them beamed. Harry had just openly admitted they had made him feel better, so they felt like they had at least done their job properly now, even if they couldn't then. "Wow, wish we got that kind of luck," James said in surprise. "It didn't matter the weather, they never cancelled classes." "Something about the mandrakes," Harry said with a shrug. "We were still helping Sprout with them in class, but she didn't want our help with something." Lily simply read. "Ah," Harry and James both nodded in understanding. "Why is it so important to you?" Sirius sniffed. "I don't see why you care what he thinks, since your friends believe you." "I didn't want someone walking around thinking I wanted them dead," Harry pointed out. Sirius shrugged, admitting this. James nodded, remembering that constant annoyance until they had finally made the map. "Was it on purpose?" James asked innocently. "Don't know," Harry shrugged. "I never got the full details." "You've got more restraint than I do," Sirius laughed. "Not a bad idea," Lily agreed. "Though you're kind of out of luck if he's in his common room," Remus added. Harry had a very bad feeling that he did find Justin that day, and then wondered why he would have a bad feeling about it. Did they have a fight about it and not make up? "Pause for irony," James said, which Lily ignored, knowing full well that if it caught Harry's attention like that, she wasn't going to like this. "Marked him down," James scoffed in disgust. "You think he's making a list? Malfoy would be number one, not these random kids," Sirius grumbled. "Let's slip." Remus yelped. He said he was going to a muggle school, well before Mrs. Norris was even petrified. Harry was grinning at all of them for their obvious defense of him. "Slytherin's heir wasn't on the lose your first class," Lily snapped. She didn't usually condone these boys' odd habits of correcting who was talking in the book, but this kid was annoying her as well. "Stereotyping," all three boys muttered, very much aware they would have agreed before they knew their little Harry was one himself. "Filch is everyone's enemy," James snarled. Is this kid trying to pretend otherwise? Harry sighed miserably. There were some odd coincidences that the people that had annoyed him were the victims. Harry, you aren't really taking this kid to heart? Remus asked in concern. He admitted what he was just thinking, and that caused them all pause for a moment, not having made those links from victim to Harry. Sirius said, That's ridiculous. It was those two who were out alone at the time. You knowing who they were doesn't mean a thing. Harry nodded, looking very much like he wanted to believe him. He also wondered why he felt an odd pang about knowing the victims. Lily stuttered a bit at that awful mental image. You sure this kid is a Hufflepuff? Sirius grumbled in disgust. Cause that was about the rudest thing ever. Is he saying Harry was born a dark wizard? Remus asked dangerously, because that is ridiculous. Dark wizards aren't born, they become that way through some twisted events. Lily shivered in disgust at that sentence, while James grew angrier the longer this kid talked. The thing he wanted to know above all others, why Voldemort had gone after his family, and this little jerk was implying it was his son's own fault. That's it, Sirius raged. I'm officially slapping this kid. Lily quirked a brow at this, but resisted pointing out that they had no idea how old this kid was right now, so that sentence was useless. It made Sirius feel better, so she just kept reading. I can run pretty fast. Pretty sure most students don't know that, Harry said weakly. There's my Pronkslet, James said with glee, showing some sarcasm in the face of this jerk. Harry chuckled as James ruffled up his hair a bit. Good, Lily huffed. Maybe next time they'll think about gossiping in such a public place. To knock some sense into him, Sirius muttered. And you? Well, then clearly you need your eyes checked, Remus snapped. A miss, James demanded. The snake never even struck out. Now he's just exaggerating his own facts, Sirius agreed with a growl. Why would he care? James grumbled. I'd attack him just for his fat mouth. So would you, all five of them muttered, not at all appreciating that reminder at this awful time. I'm rather surprised she didn't step in, Lily said distantly. You seem to have gotten quite loud. She was probably about to, Harry shrugged, deciding he must have mistaken Justin for Ernie, and this was the bad feeling he'd had. Hagrid in the castle again, Remus said, distracted at once. Well, this can't be good. Last time we saw him in the castle, he had a dragon. Please don't remind me of that, Sirius sighed. You, James wrinkled up his nose. Why was he walking around with that? Well, it's a point of conversation anyways, Sirius shrugged. Well, the fox thing is ridiculous, James said. I've never seen a normal animal survive long enough on the grounds to do something like that twice. The bugbear, though, I don't know. It's not in many textbooks. Sirius gave a glance to Remus, and when it appeared, he wasn't going to he himself said what he had learned back in his Care of Magical Creatures class. That's because bugbears are a species kind of boggart, more pesky than anything, but close enough most people don't make the distinction like Hagrid did. They're not known for killing random animals, though, so it's just as unlikely. What would kill them, then? James asked, also noting his friend's silence. Remus wasn't listening. In fact, he seemed absent to his entire surroundings. It all added up. But how? The only magical creature he could work out wasn't capable of petrification. He huffed in frustration and focused on Lily again, then realized they were watching him curiously. He smiled grimly and said, Sorry, just thinking, what was that? We were trying to figure out what would kill Hagrid's roosters, since we don't like his two suggestions, James said. Lily was shaking her head at the lot of them and scolded. Hagrid, being gamekeeper of the whole grounds, I don't understand why you're arguing the point at all. Just because you wander the grounds every bloody night doesn't mean you have Hagrid's experience. If Hagrid says it could be either of those, it could be. Then she too turned to Remus to see what had kept him so quiet. Oh, he shrugged. A basic charm will protect them from most any kind of magical creatures, but he must have already had that up, so I've no idea. This was partially a lie. He had a vague idea why someone would want to kill a rooster, but he still didn't have proof of this theory yet, so he kept it quiet to himself until he did know. Lily, still suspicious, read. Guess Hagrid didn't have that charm up, James shrugged. Well, now he can, Lily said. Guess nothing's ever bothered to attack the roosters before this, so he never had. That caused the four of them deep frowns as Harry, once again, seemed reluctant to talk to anyone about something that was bothering him. The only thing stopping them from saying anything about it was that they were sure he would speak to Ron and Hermione about it. Why? James drew the word out in trepidation. Harry sighed, muttering, "You're not going to like the answer." Lily felt her own mounting fear as she said, "Crap," all five of them said at once. "Okay, twice is coincidence. Now I agree with Ernie," Sirius growled. "Someone is trying to frame Harry." "Next time start with the end of that sentence," Remus told him conversationally, "because I almost slapped you." Harry was still sitting there, a look of shock on his face like he had been petrified himself, and Lily felt her fear continue to mount when she realized there was something else Harry must remember about this attack. Reading fearfully, "I don't want to know. I do not want to know," Sirius muttered, quietly enough that Lily didn't even pause. As Lily read that out, everyone in the room went very still. James swallowed hard before whispering, "What could do that to a ghost?" "And nothing," Remus whispered. "I've never heard of anything like this." "That's it. I want to pull Harry out of school now," Sirius said weakly. "I agree," James finally nodded. "Well, no one does pull me out," Harry sighed, finally coming out of his reverie. Remus was turning everything possible over in his mind. He thought he knew the answer. There was only one creature that had the abilities to do this. But since these circumstances had never occurred that he was aware of, was he right? He hated to think that, if just one more student was petrified, he might have his answer, but he knew how awful that sounded, so he still kept his opinion to himself. Remus narrowed his eyes and nodded to himself, which this time James and Sirius took note of. They exchanged a loaded look, and determined they would have to ask about that. Lily was interrupted by a cry from above, making all of them jump. Sirius was the one to get to his feet and make his way upstairs this time, coming back down with the little baby cuddled in his arms. He was talking in a goofy voice, saying, "Were you playing? Ha, did Uncle Sirius come in and find you making a mess of your room? I think we need to have a talk with Daddy about his playpen disappearing." "He did what?" James asked, getting to his own feet and grinning as he followed Sirius into the kitchen. You could hear them talking in there, and Harry asked, "Was that accidental magic then?" Remus nodded, saying, "Most likely he saw something he wanted outside the pen, like one of his toys, so he made the baby gate disappear. The room's baby-proofed, so we're not concerned he got into anything." "How young do you start doing accidental magic?" Harry asked, since the baby Sirius was now bringing back into the room was only a few months old. "His age," Lily said. Your age, whatever. The point is, magic manifests at very young ages. This was the best kind of distraction possible for the little group right now. Lily set the book aside, and all of them sat around having a nice normal conversation, avoiding the book altogether because they didn't want to keep reading and possibly upset the baby again. Sirius even asked if they could have lunch after the baby was done eating. Lily agreed and left the boys to it while she got up to go do just this. By the time the baby was done eating and had been burped and put back upstairs for a long nap, they were all full and in a much more content mood. What they were reading about was scary, no use in denying that, but after such a nice long break, they got a little bit of a reminder that it was going to be okay. Harry was here and fine and safe, which was their most important motive. When Lily picked up the book to read again, she was almost smiling despite the grim mood of the book. James hesitated before saying, "I think you should have, dang, it's kind of awful both ways." Sirius nodded and said, "If he stayed, it would have made him look guilty. If he made a run for it, and anyone even glimpsed him, it would make him look guilty," Remus agreed. Lily sighed, hoping dearly her son wasn't going to be blamed for this as well. "Well, this won't be good," James muttered. "Peeves yelled a lot louder than that, Mum," Harry said lightly. "I wasn't going to go shouting that," Lily disagreed. Everyone shuddered in disgust at this, Nick still being the most disturbing part of this attack. James grimaced, no longer finding that the least bit funny. "Great," Sirius drawled. "This should be good." "Idiot," Remus muttered darkly, like anyone would stand around after they'd just done something like that. "How do they even think you're doing this?" Harry shrugged. He had never stopped anyone to ask for details. He didn't want to know. "Thank Merlin for McGonagall," Lily smiled. "Why, that little," Lily spluttered in disgust. James grimaced and said, "Yeah, Peeves likes making songs about awful things." "I thought you got on all right with him," she asked. "No," Sirius laughed. "We just know how he works. We never said we liked him." "He loved picking on me in particular," Remus added with fond remembrance. "Why's that?" Harry asked curiously. Not sure, he shrugged. Guess I was just an easy target. He called me Loony Loopy, probably because he found me sleeping in random places throughout the castle. Why did you do that? Harry asked further, not feeling nearly as reserved around these people anymore, feeling like he could ask them anything at this point. Transforming is exhausting for me, Remus sighed, and I slept a lot both before and after it happened. Sometimes I just didn't feel like making the long trek up to the dormitory, so I'd curl up somewhere and take a nap. The amount of times Peeves saw me doing that must have inspired his song. He was the main reason we invented the map, James thought fondly. We got tired of looking around for him every time he did that. He decided against mentioning this to Harry, though, since Harry still knew nothing of the map. He wanted to sit on that for a while longer until he had established what had happened to it. Lily couldn't believe they were taking Peeves marking Harry so lightly, but thinking back on all the things she'd seen the poltergeist do over the years, she guessed making an awful song wasn't even the worst. I'm still happy she did that, Lily said. The boys nodded, knowing that Peeves was more annoying than amusing to most people. Would that even work? Harry asked. I've no idea, we never tried, James said curiously. Guess it does, Remus said in surprise. At least they didn't just leave him there, Lily agreed. How are they even going to fix him? Sirius asked. For that matter, what if someone was petrified with their mouth closed? How would they fix that? You pour it down their nose, Lily shrugged. I find it fascinating you know that, James said, grinning lovingly at his wife. She smiled indulgently at him before continuing, as for Nick, I've no idea, honestly. Harry sighed miserably. He had a feeling he had asked someone this at some time, but he had no clear memory of this now, so he didn't pry into it. Where's she taking you? James asked in trepidation. She doesn't think you did it, Sirius asked with both surprise and anger. Harry shrugged miserably. He certainly hoped his head of house didn't think that of him. Curtly, Remus muttered. That doesn't help. Crap. James muttered. She took you to Dumbledore's office. Still doesn't answer whether they're blaming you, Sirius said, looking a little jittery. He'd really get mad if Harry was punished for this. I don't think he will, Lily said slowly. After all, if he didn't think it was Harry back during these exact same circumstances with the cat, why would he now? This seemed to relive the rest of them. Well, look on the bright side, James said as he took the book from his wife. Harry got sent to Dumbledore's office before we did. That's an accomplishment. Chapter 12. The Polyjuice Potion. Chapter text. Lily snorted in disbelief, asking, Why is that an accomplishment? It's a great honor to do something so bad you get sent to see the headmaster, Remus said with glee. Right, Lily rolled her eyes. Harry remembered them having mentioned being sent to Dumbledore's office before and asked, Why did you guys blow up a school corridor? That was an accident, Sirius said, smiling brightly. We were trying to set up a trap for a Slytherin, and this Ravenclaw kid came in and blew the whole thing early. If we'd been allowed to set it up right, it would have just blew the Slytherin's clothes off of him. He was okay, Remus said quickly at the looks on both Harry and Lily's faces. Just had to spend 2 days in the hospital wing because his clothes wouldn't come off. They fixed up that hole pretty fast as well. I'm sorry you asked, Harry, Lily sighed. I'm much happier not knowing half the things these four came up with. Harry didn't hear his mom that time. He was too busy chuckling at their antics. James gave his wife a superior grin, like, ha, he takes after me, before reading smugly. You've only been to 3, James scoffed. We got sent to all of them by our 3rd year. You sound so proud, Lily snorted. I'm agreeing with Harry, though, Remus said. Dumbledore's is the best. And that would have been depressing if I knew it wasn't true, Sirius said brightly. What do those do? Harry asked. I've no idea, James said, smiling as he remembered some of those instruments and having to fight back the urge to go have a poke at them when he'd been up there himself. We didn't stay long enough to ask. Now that's interesting, Lily said, going a little wide-eyed. I've never known anyone to put the hat on twice. You think it'll rish out a house? Sirius asked, grinning at his own stupid question. James read on, curious himself what the hat would say. Well, he can see inside your head. Lily giggled at the surprised look on Harry's face. Why is it so surprising he knows what you're thinking, 2 years after he could do it last time? Harry shrugged. Even after 2 years in the magical world, he still wasn't used to talking hats. Don't worry, Harry, Sirius said bracingly, as Harry did look just a tad upset the hat still stood by this. I was supposed to be in Slytherin too, but I never looked back. The hat may place you, but you decide how you are. Any lingering of looking upset vanished as Harry beamed over at him, causing Lily to restrain herself from making a jab at Sirius having said something both kind and intelligent. Remus chuckled and said, "I'd wondered why Harry hadn't mentioned Fawkes." "What is he?" Harry asked nervously, remembering quite well the sickly bird. "He's a phoenix," Sirius shrugged, like that explained everything. Seeing Harry's still blank look, Remus explained more about the bird's qualities. Harry nodded along happily, then said quickly, "So the bird's not going to drop dead then, 'cause he looks awful right then." "Nah," James said. "It's just one of his burning days. He's going to be reborn just as ugly." "You probably won't see it, though," Remus added. "Phoenixes are at their most vulnerable in their infant stage. They only do it around their familiar. I've always wanted to ask Dumbledore how he got Fawkes as his, since it's so stinking rare to find a phoenix, let alone get one to trust you long enough to bond with it." "More questions to ask," Lily said with a shrug, still fully planning a visit up to the school when they were allowed to leave the house again. "What?" All four of them yelped in shock. "Did he really?" James asked, studying the book like he thought it was lying to him. Harry was nodding mutely, a stunned look on his face. "Wow, I have nothing to say to that," Remus said, giving Harry a very inquisitive look. "Unless Dumbledore is standing behind you, and even then it's a shocker he did it with you in the room." Harry smiled sheepishly. He had no idea why Fawkes had done this, but didn't like the extra attention it would get him if it was as odd as everyone here said it was. He certainly didn't need the extra curiosity about him. "Nope," Sirius said. "Obviously," Remus said, rolling his eyes at him. "My son gets to do and see the coolest things," James sighed, thinking this was one time he didn't have to even do anything life-threatening to get to see that. Lily nodded and said, "You did look pretty surprised just then. But then that's probably the first time you've seen anything burst into flames, even knowing it was going to happen now." Harry nodded, thinking back to that memory still made him want to back up in shock. James snickered at his son's description, while Remus went wide-eyed with glee and envy. He had only ever heard descriptions of newborn phoenixes. Harry got to see one in person. First the dragon, now this. He was eagerly hoping Harry would describe something else new soon, before he remembered the circumstances that led to him being in both of those places, and his enthusiasm disappeared all over again. "Well, he seems to be in a hurry," Lily said in surprise. "What spooked him?" Sirius added in confusion. "Oh," Lily cooed. "He heard what happened and came to defend you." "I've said it before, and I will forever say it. Thank you, Hagrid," James said, beaming. Remus and Sirius were smiling as well, though they were still chuckling a bit at the vivid mental image Harry had painted. "Not that you need one," Sirius said, "but Hagrid's even giving you an alibi." "He had one for the first two attacks as well," Remus reminded him. "The abundance of ghosts, plus you can't leave the hospital wing without Madame Pomfrey knowing. Enter it sure, but you can't leave. Honestly, if anyone sat down and thought about it for more than a second, it's obvious." "Thanks all the same," Harry said, grinning at the pair of them. "Wow," James said, going wide-eyed, "and Hagrid doesn't like the Ministry at all." "Can you blame him? They did snap his wand," Sirius agreed. Though they were all pretty convinced Dumbledore thought this, they still released a sigh of relief that it was verbally confirmed all the same. "I don't care how embarrassed he was," Harry said, smiling from ear to ear. "No one had ever defended me like that. I went down to his hut a few days later and ate everything he cooked." "Now that's gratitude," Sirius snickered. "Did you tell him everything?" Lily asked hopefully. "Did you tell him anything?" James repeated at the apprehensive look on Harry's face. "No," Harry sighed. "I was still afraid of being called crazy more than anything." They sighed in disappointment, but knew better than to argue the point. "Okay, I don't blame you for not wanting to tell him about that," Remus agreed. "I am so happy I don't think that anymore," Harry sighed, giving them all very grateful looks. "Well, yeah," Sirius agreed. "I don't want to know what can kill a ghost again." Remus went bug-eyed, but forced himself not to shout out. No one had ever tested that. This idea had never happened in the wizarding world before. But he wondered if he'd finally found his answer. If it was, though, then that meant what was running around Harry's school wasn't just the death of Muggleborns. It would be the death of them all. He tried to shake that thought away, though, forcing himself to remain in the here and now and pay attention, since he still wasn't positive he was right. "That does sound pretty bad," James agreed. especially since you're actively not trying to avoid him. You mean you can't? Sirius asked in mock disappointment. Personally, I'd stand in line to see that. Children, honestly, Lily muttered in disdain, hating that her son felt so awful 2 years in a row because of the random students in this school. Now here's something fun, James grinned. What exactly were they doing? Then he read out eagerly. Both James and Sirius cracked grins at this, finding this only the start of a list of jokes they would have made in the same instances. I don't see why that's funny, Lily said disapprovingly. People are really scared of this, and them mocking Harry doesn't do any good. I disagree, James scoffed. They're showcasing just how ludicrous the idea of Harry being the person doing this is. Sirius and Remus didn't seem to be paying attention. Remus still had a bit of a vacant look on his face, unable to completely erase what his mind was sure it had just discovered. One Sirius had noticed happened every time someone made any kind of comment about this monster. Had Remus figured it out? If so, why wasn't he sharing with the others? James didn't seem to notice his friends were only vaguely paying attention now as he continued. Remus snorted that snapped him out of his reverie. Unless there's a vampire running around, that won't do any good. It's my point, though, Lily said harshly. The first years are terrified, and her own brothers are making it worse. They're just goofing around, Sirius shrugged. I don't know why she's so upset about them making a joke, unless she thinks Harry is doing it. James scoffed and said, please, the way she fawned over him over the summer. She'll think that of her hero when Hermione stops believing in Lockhart. Thanks, I think, Harry said, giving his dad an odd look, trying to decide if that was supposed to make him feel better. Wonder why? Lily asked, distracting herself. It's not like she could do anything about the twins' attitude. He's annoyed that Harry is getting that kind of attention, James snickered. He's already jealous enough of Harry. Now he's getting the credit for something he would have loved to be doing. That's awful, Lily yelped, looking ill at the thought. You think a child would really go around petrifying people? I wouldn't put it past him, Sirius agreed with his friend. Lily still didn't seem so convinced, but as none of them really believed it was Malfoy, she didn't press the subject. Then he must hate everyone, Remus marked. Somehow I think they could have managed without you. James snorted in disgust at this kid. He clearly needed his head deflated a bit. He may have also been speaking from a bit of past experience, looking back on his own thoughts and deciding someone needed to deflate his own head a bit at that age. What boy complains about a girl bursting into their dorm? Sirius asked, grinning wickedly. I wish I had complained more, Remus muttered in disgust. Maybe I wouldn't have walked in on so many scenes. Sirius didn't even bother to look abashed. Lily couldn't help but tense up with nerves, still unconvinced this bright little second year could accomplish such an advanced potion. Harry was fine, of course, but what if he hadn't been the first to try it, and he watched one of his friends get poisoned? She felt almost as protective of Harry's friends as her own son at this point. Seeing all the trouble they got into just made that maternal feeling come out. And a Merry Christmas to her too, Sirius said, wrinkling up his nose in disgust. James said, going wide-eyed, I'd forgotten about Hedwig. She honestly hasn't come to see you since the beginning of term. Nope, Harry said sadly, which is why I enjoyed that gift so much. Well, this can't be good, James groaned, good mood gone instantly. If they gave you another 50 pence, you'd have a whole pound, Sirius said brightly. Harry gave an amused chuckle, but he was the only one who did. A toothpick, Lily choked. Might as well have sent you nothing. Remus scoffed in disgust. Honestly, at some point I do wonder why they bother, Harry agreed with a sigh. Considering their hatred for his owl, it was a miracle any of them had gone near her to tie that up. It was a rhetorical statement, though, and he wasn't really expecting a response. Oh, but there's more, James grumbled, reading on tersely. If only, Harry grumbled, then asked with genuine curiosity, why doesn't Hogwarts allow that? Sirius said miserably, oh, trust me, I've asked. It's because the teachers have to go home at some point too. They do have lives outside of school like the students. There's not a lot of staff during the summer holidays, so they can't just let the students wander around practically unattended. Still, Lily said miserably, I would personally volunteer there if it meant kids like Harry had another option besides going home to an awful life like that. All five of them stayed silent for a moment longer, Lily determining she would put some honest inquiries into this kind of situation. She now knew of 3 boys who would have done a lot not to go back to a home. This matter needed to be addressed. Shaking himself, James forced himself to keep reading. I'm sure one of the teachers went to take it back home or something, Remus said, already having thought of that. But Harry never mentioned where he got it from to anyone, James reminded. Well, it can't be too difficult to figure out, Sirius snorted. It's not like anyone in the school got a howler about it. Well, I never heard anything else about it, Harry shrugged, wondering why he thought that car was going to show up again later. Glad I could put that question to rest, Lily giggled. It was really keeping me up at night. As often as he polishes that thing, he didn't notice, Remus asked, bemused. Why didn't we think of that? James exclaimed, clapping a hand to his forehead. Because you actually respected me, Remus said, frowning at both of his friends who were snickering. His brothers clearly don't. Way to sink a joke, Moony, Sirius said, only looking a bit ashamed. Bet it wasn't hand-knitted, though, Lily snapped. Exactly what was your plan again? Remus asked curiously. Turn into some Slytherins, get him to confess to you he'd been doing these awful things, and then what? Go to Dumbledore without any proof but your word against someone you publicly don't like. Harry was frowning at him as he said, Well, when you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous. How did you put it? Sirius asked. Harry opened his mouth, then closed it again, unable to stop himself going red in the face. When his dad didn't keep reading, he finally said, Okay, fine. We didn't really have much of a plan past getting Malfoy to confess. Okay, James shrugged, so long as you admit it. Sirius nodded, saying, At least you recognize that. Also a good point, James agreed. And you're just hoping they'll eat something handed to them by a pair of kids who hate them, Remus demanded. Why are you questioning every little thing? Harry grumped. If you don't ask all the questions, you won't have all the answers, James shrugged. And you need all the answers when doing something like this. I'm both intrigued you boys put so much thought into your stunts and still annoyed by it, Lily told them pleasantly. Oh, that's even better, Remus amended his statement. You're hoping Crabbe and Goyle will just eat food randomly lying around. Bet you that works, though, James said, cracking a grin. They seem thick enough. Then he read curiously. You think Malfoy will find it hard if she joins in on this conversation? Lily asked, joining in with the boys now and still annoying Harry. Do you know if she normally hangs around those three? Harry just huffed. He had no answer for that. James broke off to look at the book in disbelief, but read loudly before anyone could say anything. You've got to be kidding me, Sirius said, going wide-eyed. A student randomly came back for an hour and then left again. Where do I even begin? Why, okay. Harry cut him off. It was dumb, I get it. They felt a little bad about making Harry so obviously upset by their questions, but then James nudged him and said, Well, good. That means you're learning your lesson. Hopefully next time you'll think of all these things yourself. How many times do you expect our son to go around doing this kind of thing? Lily demanded. Both Harry and James flushed and ignored her. At least Ron acknowledges it, Sirius muttered to Remus. I win, James crowed happily. Next time remind me to put money on that. No, Sirius said at once. I'm not losing money to you again. I hate your stupid betting. He's just mad because he always loses, Remus answered Harry's confused look, then began laughing quietly. Wish I had a camera, Harry said, grinning now, because that was funny. Too bad Colin isn't following you around any more then, James thought sadly, but decided against saying that, since it seemed a bit insensitive. Now you're thinking ahead, Sirius approved. Ah, Remus began uneasily, but Lily was beaming while saying, It's supposed to do that. Merlin, I think she actually did it right. Here's hoping, James smiled. Good, Sirius nodded. You did think about this in some ways. You lot are far too okay with this, Lily scoffed. Well, since they're already doing it, James said with amusement, might as well praise them for what they're doing right. And, Remus said quickly when it looked like Lily was going to snap at him, make sure at least Harry knows why it was wrong. Harry just smiled at them. Lily nodded approvingly, but still wasn't going to be satisfied until Harry drank it first without a hitch. That's interesting, Sirius said, going bright-eyed. What would happen if you put different people's hair into the same cauldron? Your body would try and turn into both of those people, Lily said grimly. It is not pleasant. I find it fascinating you know that, James chuckled. Pleasant, Lily said in disgust. Was that not what was supposed to happen? Harry asked in concern, misinterpreting his mother's look of disgust. No, it's supposed to change colors, Lily agreed. The color supposedly attributes to that person's personality. Example, a sick yellow makes her a bad type of person. Say the potion was a more pleasant yellow, like a daisy or something, that person would be more fun to have around. Some people have tried to do studies on it, but since no two people have the same colors, it's hard to pinpoint exactly. Harry nodded in fascination, but then wondered why he had such a bad feeling about Hermione's potion. Pleasant, Sirius grumbled in disgust. Kind of want to make some now, just to see what color mine would turn, James said, kind of amused now. Let me know how that works out, Remus muttered. Agreed, Lily giggled. They don't even make those stalls big enough for the three of you, honestly. Harry nodded, glad Hermione had pointed that out since it had been a tight squeeze in there already. Lily sighed as she said, Okay, Hermione officially has to be the smartest student ever. Kind of have to agree, Remus nodded. You're thinking she did the potion right without hearing about it? Sirius asked, not disagreeing, just curious. Well, if they all took it at the same time, and we know there couldn't have been any irreversible side effects since Harry's okay, then yes. Hermione did it right, Lily said. I don't know. Potions isn't really that hard, James shrugged. You just have to have the patience to follow the instructions as they're given. A first year could feasibly do a seventh year potion if they take the time to do it right. Oh, really? Lily said scathingly. So what's your excuse for doing so poorly in the class? She was perhaps a little stung her husband was knocking her best subject. Not seeming to notice this danger, James continued, because we didn't care. Potions had little to no use to us. Lily scowled at him, looking ready to fight back the importance and difficulty this class had when Harry said loudly, Can we keep going? I want to hear about this. Lily still looked a bit annoyed, but allowed James to keep going. Lily nodded, looking relieved that this was still correct. The taste should be at least similar to what it looked like. Sirius shuddered in disgust, deciding he wouldn't join James in his new project, but James asked, Does all Polyjuice potion taste like that, or was it because Goyle's color looked like overcooked cabbage? I thought it said Goyle's looked like a boogie, Remus asked. Overcooked cabbage does look like boogies, Sirius grumbled. Lily spoke loudly over them and repeated the same information she had been thinking out loud, making Remus ask, So what would an ugly yellow taste like? How should I know? Lily asked. I told you no two look the same applies to the taste. Sirius brightened at that, taking back his mental comment. You know what? Sirius said aloud this time. You have fun with this one, James. I'm out. You're no fun, James told him, pouting. Are you really telling me you wouldn't want to switch bodies for an hour? At least now we'd know what to expect. Sirius did look a little more persuaded, but James knew he could bring this up again later, so he read. I was going to ask why you didn't do that closer to the Slytherin common room to give you more time, Remus said, but I guess now I know why. Wouldn't want to get caught either doing that or falling on the ground like that, Sirius agreed. It was creepy, Harry said, hearing someone else's voice instead of my own, and then Crabbe instead of Ron. Be disorienting to get used to, Lily agreed. When have you taken it? James demanded. Lily smirked and said, Wouldn't you like to know? Did you do it in school? Sirius demanded. Of course not, Lily said, looking offended he would even ask that. If I had, I wouldn't have been nearly as disapproving of Harry doing it. But we started dating in our 7th year, James said, now looking like he was about to start pouting. So when would you have done something like this without telling me? Don't look so upset, James. Lily rolled her eyes. I was joking. I've never actually taken it. James brightened up at once, even smiling now that he realized his lily flower had actually just pulled one over on him. The descriptions are my favorite part of this, Remus chuckled. You didn't figure out at least that before you started this. James couldn't help but ask. All you'd have to do is slip on the cloak and follow any Slytherin down there, Sirius agreed. That would have been the easiest part. Harry just sighed, deciding against arguing the point. All 5 of them snickered in appreciation of Ron's wit this time. Ah, did anyone describe her voice as being high-pitched before? Lily asked in concern. Well, we haven't even heard her speak yet, Sirius said, noting Harry's surprised look, so knowing that couldn't possibly be right. Then why did it work for Ron and Harry, but not Hermione? All 5 of them looked genuinely concerned now. This whole plan had been Hermione's idea. For her to not be going now meant something really bad must have happened to her. Even Lily couldn't imagine why, though, since the potion had worked perfectly for 2 of them. Unless Hermione was some sort of half-breed, doubtful since there would have been signs of this, the potion should have worked for her as well. I'm sure she's okay, Harry said, feeling frustrated. He couldn't be more confident about this. I knew something bad happened to her this year, but I think she's still fine. James gave him as reassuring a smile as he could muster, saying, well, I know firsthand Pomfrey can fix almost anything that goes wrong in that school. So whatever odd side effect happened, she can fix it. Can't imagine what the problem is, though, Remus sighed. Would the potion work on muggles? Sirius suddenly burst out loudly, his mind pushing around for something else to change the subject. I know Hermione's not one, obviously, I'm just curious. No one's ever tested it, Lily said. Sirius' idea seemed to have worked as she seemed distracted at once by this idea. Obviously, they would have to consent to the idea, which would entail they knew about magic. However, I would think not, since very many things that affect wizards don't affect muggles in the same way. I do wonder. She trailed off. James smiled indulgently at her, then mouthed, thank you, at Sirius for giving her yet another project she would probably like to start now. Sirius gave him a half-mocking bow as a you're welcome. Remus gave a bursting laugh of appreciation. The three boys smiled weakly, but until they knew what was wrong with Hermione, they couldn't find too much humor in that. Good eye for detail, James approved. Sirius sighed. Did Harry have any idea how much area there was in the dungeons below? And the Slytherin common room was behind a blank, obscure wall. If they didn't know where it was, there was a very good chance they'd never find it. Ouch! All five of them winced. Another spot of bad luck. I'm not sure how well that could have passed anyways, James sighed. Your second years, halfway through term. Any first year can find the way to their common room before the first month's up. I don't think even they're that thick, Sirius agreed. Sirius opened his mouth, thought about it, then closed it again and said, nah, too easy, plus we've already been over this. Gee, thanks, Harry muttered. Wow, I really hope you didn't do all that for nothing, Remus winced. Percy, they all asked in confusion. What would he be doing down there? James added. Maybe Prefect Percy isn't all that perfect, Remus suggested. Harry just shrugged. He had a vague feeling he knew the answer, but he had no real feelings towards the matter. Well, he's not wrong, Lily winced, hating the idea of this horrid monster going anywhere near Harry, even if he was the one who kept hearing it. At least his father's status wouldn't make her boy a target. Then she felt guilty for thinking like this, since every other muggle born in the school was a target. She sighed, comforting herself that at least this monster's effects weren't permanent, and that mandrake potion should be done before the end of the year. I think we should start calling him Pompous Percy, James snorted. Is he really that delusional? Remus asked, raising a brow in disbelief. Harry nodded, wondering why the longer these books went on, the madder he got at Percy. Was it possible his behavior got worse as he grew up? And last time I'm sure, Harry muttered. Which probably means it's dumb, Remus surmised. No one does, James agreed, but yours is hardly any better. It was a nice thought, though, Lily said. I would hope not, Sirius frowned. If the teachers can't, I'd hardly think he could. He's what, a sixth year? He also puts plenty of respect into positions. No, Percy's up to something else. And he has been since the summer, Remus reminded them. They all puzzled for a moment, but shrugged when they realized they were stumped. They just didn't know enough about Percy, and Harry certainly didn't go out of his way to spend time with him, so they most likely wouldn't figure it out at all. Well, that's original, Lily muttered in disdain. It's usually something along those lines, though, James huffed. Lily went bug-eyed as she looked at the three boys and snapped, Why would you know that? I never even knew that. Really? Remus asked in surprise. I would have thought you'd at least know where the Slytherin common room is. No, she said, now frowning at all of them. I don't know where any of them are, except my own, of course. For shame, Lils, Sirius said, shaking his head from side to side. We know where all of them are, James said, puffing his chest out with pride, and we've a pretty good idea how to get into them as well. The Slytherins have a password system like ours, but it's not as random. It's more to do with their stereotypes. Why, I've no idea, but since I'm sure Snape sets it up same as McGonagall. That just says more about him than anything, Slughorn too for that matter. The Hufflepuffs are down by the kitchen, and you've got to do a series of taps on these barrels. That's harder to figure out, since it changes as often as ours does. The Ravenclaws are hardest of all. They do a riddle every stinking time a new person comes up. Remus was the only one who could ever figure those out, Sirius smirked. Lily just kind of sat there, looking astounded at the lot of them. She couldn't decide if she was impressed they knew all of that, or annoyed since the houses weren't supposed to know about the other houses' dorms. Finally, she went with impressed, since there was no good in nagging them about that now, so she asked, "What are they like then? And how did you get in without being caught by someone else from that house?" Sirius opened his mouth to respond, but James cut him off, saying, "Tell us what the other founders supposedly did to the school, and we'll tell you." Lily studied them for a moment before saying, "Think we should pick this up later then. We're getting off track, and I want to see what Malfoy has to say about all of this." James gave her a knowing smile, but continued on all the same. Harry, however, was disappointed his mum wouldn't play his dad's game. He really wanted to know both of those answers, since he himself felt like he should know them anyways. Lily couldn't help but listen eagerly now. Despite how often she had got saved to describe the common room to her, she would love to hear Harry's account of it. "Please tell me you go into the dormitories," Remus said, going wide-eyed with remembered glee. "That's the best part." "Why?" Lily asked suspiciously. "'Cause the walls are glass," Sirius nodded in agreement with Remus, "and you can see straight into the lake. We only went into one of them, but I can't imagine why all of them wouldn't be like that." Almost, James stressed. "Rivals our view of the Quidditch pitch. It's pretty cool to see the mermaids just go swimming past you." Harry shook his head as he sighed and said, "No, we only stay in their common room." Lily couldn't help but feel a little envious now, suddenly wishing she really had taken a chance at some point and gone into the Slytherin common room. "Sounds dark," Lily said in surprise. "They like it like that," Sirius shrugged. "Personally, I can see the pros of that as opposed to the tower," Remus smiled. "So we were right," James sighed. "It isn't going to be funny at all." "Oh," all five of them said at once. It had been long enough that if Ron hadn't come across this on his own yet, they had been really hoping he wouldn't be tied into this. Now James read with trepidation. "Ouch," Lily winced in sympathy. "Damn," Sirius let out a low, throaty whistle. "Poor guy." James huffed a bit as he kept going, not at all pleased someone like Arthur got into trouble. Yes, he shouldn't have broken the law in the first place, but it wasn't him that got caught either. It was the kids. If the boys hadn't taken the car, Arthur might have gotten away with it altogether. Then he realized he couldn't hardly be mad at Harry and Ron. What they did was stupid, but ignorant in their actions, so they were hardly to blame either. Recognizing he couldn't do anything for it, though, he continued. "He's a governor," James spluttered in disgust. "Well, that explains how he knew those test scores," Remus grumbled. "Oh, this is just brilliant," Sirius snarled. "Death Eaters making decisions about children's school life. Whatever respect I had for the ministry before is gone now." "Gee, thanks, Sirius," Lily said, frowning at him. "You know, being an Auror is technically working for the ministry too," James pointed out. Sirius rolled his eyes at the pair of them, saying, "Okay, so not everyone in there is evil, but a Malfoy getting a job there still feels like an awful omen to life." "I'm going to agree with Sirius on this one," Remus nodded. The parents exchanged a look before nodding their agreement as well. Still disgruntled at this revelation, James read, "He doesn't even have that kind of power," Lily snapped. "Arthur being the head of a department, only the minister could fire him. Doing something like that is hardly worth being sacked over." Harry was sinking lower and lower in his seat, still feeling guilty like this whole fiasco was his fault. James tried his best to comfort both of them, saying, "I'm sure he won't be. Just the prophet stirring up trouble as usual." All five of them growled in real anger at that now. Where did Malfoy get off deciding that? Taking a deep breath, James now felt a twisting pain in his gut as he forced himself to pay attention to the words. "A very real threat, I'm sure," Remus grimly smiled. "Here I thought his sense of humor wasn't even this awful," Sirius hissed. "Who would find that funny?" "He really is as awful as his father," James agreed. "What, like a decent human?" Lily snapped. The four of them cracked grins at that. Happy Ron had an excuse like that on hand, and it was believable enough if the implications of how much Crabbe and Goyle ate were anything to go by. It really wouldn't be good for anyone if the boys were discovered doing this. "Now that's surprising," Lily said, quirking a brow. "You can keep anything hushed up with a bit of money," Sirius laughed. Lily frowned at him. She didn't find this funny one bit, but she also knew by now that Sirius simply deflected bad things with bad humor. "Doubtful," James muttered, having absolute faith no one could remove Dumbledore. Remus was red in the face with anger by this point. Dumbledore was the reason he had been allowed to go school. How dare this child say anyone shouldn't have that right? Sirius balled up his fists in fury as he growled, "And I wish he wouldn't let your kind in." "You do know that means us," James pointed out sadly. "I meant the way he's acting, you git," Sirius huffed. "What, should we start giving them personality tests before they can attend now?" Lily asked, a smile twitching across her face now. Remus burst out laughing, causing Sirius to mumble something about being ganged up on, but they all felt a little better at the random messing around. Harry bit at his lip, a question popping into his mind, and before he could decide to brush it away, his dad caught sight and said, "Come on, Harry, what was that?" Harry meant to deny it, his eyes flickering almost shamefully to Remus, but when he caught sight as well, he gave him an easy smile and said, "Go on, I can promise I've heard it before, and I know you don't mean it." Still unable to untense his shoulders, he uneasily voiced, "Well, you said that everyone who's born magical is automatically let in." "Right," Remus egged him on when Harry still looked like he wanted to waver off. "Well, you also mentioned before that Dumbledore was the only headmaster who would let you come to school, but I mean, how could any headmaster stop you?" Harry finished in a rush. He hated saying anything like that about Remus, but they'd asked for it. Remus sighed as he looked pityingly at Harry, but he knew he'd always prefer him to look upset at the question rather than fearful, so he answered with as much dignity as he could muster. "It's illegal for me to be around children." "It's technically illegal for me to even be here," he finished with a guilty look towards the stairs. "But when Dumbledore set it up for me, I'm sure he and all the teachers never mentioned it to the Ministry. Just like no one's going to talk about you being here like that," Sirius finished with a terrifying look on his face. He would happily curse anyone into oblivion if they said otherwise about Remus going wherever he wanted to. Harry nodded in understanding. That was all the answer he needed. All five of them were furious by this point. The kid was a bit of an annoyance, but Malfoy's marking was beyond uncalled for. "I would think so," James spat, "or it's just not funny." "What do you call them, Harry?" Lily asked. "Malfoy's cronies." "That's accurate enough, since they probably don't have a mind of their own." The boys snickered a bit at that. James read with gritted teeth, making the rest of the sentence almost unrecognizable. How many times can he say that before Dad really does curse him? Harry asked his mom quietly. "I won't let him curse a child," Lily sighed, looking rather upset at this fact more than anything. But in answer, not much more. The present marauders were all talking in hushed, quiet voices, and the other two really didn't want to know what they were talking about, knowing full well it wasn't anything good. Once James seemed to have vented enough, he read on a little more intelligibly. Remus let out a dissatisfied huff, which his friends immediately noticed. "What was that?" Sirius asked. "I thought we all agreed much earlier it wasn't possible a second year to be doing this." Remus hesitated for a moment before finally admitting to the others what he thought was really going on. "The only creature who could possibly be able to petrify people like this, I thought, was a Gorgon. But what if it's something else? Something that no one has ever tested, because it's just so bloody dangerous no one has ever even seen one in hundreds of years." "Quit beating around the bush, Moony," Sirius grumbled, not exactly the patient one. Remus sucked in a deep breath before finally saying, "It's something only Harry might be able to hear. At least it would explain why no one around could hear it as well. It's something only Slytherin could control, the snake tongue. I think the monster creeping around is a basilisk." There was a very long pause after this before Lily asked weakly, "But those things kill by looking. Why hasn't anyone died?" I am guessing here, but I think it's because no one has looked it in the eye yet." He began, still looking hesitant, but then he continued explaining all of the circumstances, and no one corrected him, but simply sat there in another long drawn-out moment of silence. No one had even recovered, yet to give their opinion on if they believed him or not before Harry said, "That's it." Remus smiled over at him, pleased he had worked this out, but then hesitated again and said, "My only problem is, who could be pulling these stunts off aside from you? Parselmouths aren't very common, but it wouldn't have surprised me if perhaps Malfoy had been doing this all along, simply hiding his ability, but now it's obvious he's not." He trailed off in frustration. "Plus," James agreed. "No offense, Moony, but really none of the teachers at the school thought of this either." Thanks," he muttered. "And how is something like that even getting around?" Sirius demanded. "Surely that snake's not exactly subtle." "That," Remus shrugged, "I've no idea." Well, at least as far as James' concerned, it is a bit far-fetched. I agree with Remus because I can't even think of anything else, Lily shrugged. Thanks, I think, Remus snorted. Harry was kneading his brow, but looked a little less miserable as he admitted he had no answer. Malfoy's answer, while not unsurprising, was still disappointing. Harry, however, smiled again almost at once, saying that at least they were on the right track. Sirius gave a surprised snort of mirth at that description. I'd be astounded if he did, Remus frowned, since I can't think of anyone. That sounded almost pig-headed, James told him with a smile. Remus just grinned and shrugged. 50 years, Sirius said, going cross-eyed as he imagined that far back. Well, that doesn't help at all. Why wouldn't we have heard of it, though? It wasn't so long ago that we shouldn't have heard of this. Maybe it got hushed up as well, Lily suggested. If this same thing happened 50 years ago, and they were all simply woken up in the same way, but nothing further happened. She trailed off in frustration at the unlikeliness of this. Remus was shaking his head fast, saying, this exact set of circumstances, happening 50 years previously, I'm still blasted how no one's died yet. Thankful, but still confused, but pleased that they had found out something from this little misadventure, James hoped Harry would get out of there quickly now. The hour must be almost up, and they had learned everything they could from Malfoy. Plus, being around the kid just kind of pissed him off. Lily didn't look happy that she had been at least semi-right about that, but James didn't pause again. Do what? All five of them said in surprise, their shock for once bypassing the outrage at the use of that word. Now there's no way that could be kept quiet, Remus said. Surely someone would have looked into a student dying at school. They all exchanged very uneasy looks, not exactly reassured that something like a murder was hidden in the Hogwarts school history. Who the bloody hell hopes someone dies? James said quietly. He seemed beyond rage at this point. No one had an answer for him. At James' question, they had all thought of a certain three Dursleys, who they may not have batted an eye if they died. However, the main difference there was that they were abusive people. Hermione hadn't done a thing wrong to anyone, let alone Malfoy. For a child to wish another kid dead like that was pretty dang awful. But oh so sweet, Sirius sighed. Honestly, you could just punch him and run for it, and no one would have any idea what happened. You wouldn't even get in trouble for it. Lily opened then closed her mouth before shaking her head in disbelief, but since she knew full well Harry wouldn't allow his friend to do that, at least she hoped, she said nothing. Still can't believe I've never heard of that, Sirius shrugged. Well, since you're clearly on your way there, James grinned, throwing a look at Lily. You can ask him while you're there. That's not funny, James, Lily snapped, and I wasn't joking. What, you going to turn me in? Sirius smirked, now right in with his friend on picking on Lily for her earlier exclamation. Lily narrowed her eyes dangerously at him before muttering something under her breath. Remus was the only one who wasn't exactly reassured that Lily hadn't answered, but since the other boys just started laughing, he chose to say nothing. James rolled his eyes, now knowing Malfoy's sense of humor was as bad as it got, as if he needed confirmation. James didn't break off again, but he was mentally wondering what the odds were that he would get 2 chapters where Malfoy constantly said that word. Wish they had bloody arrested him while they were at it, Sirius huffed. Hope it wasn't too difficult for you, James said, still more amused than anything by Harry. And there Ron goes, Remus said, tossing his hands in the air in frustration, cutting people off when I'd have liked to hear the end of that sentence. Yeah, which drawing room, Sirius agreed. As big as that stupid mansion is, I'd have liked more details. Harry shrugged, knowing there was nothing more they could do for it now. He also had a very firm feeling that they told Mr. Weasley about this, and hoped that this would help redeem him at the Ministry a bit. Time's up, Lily said, going slightly paler as she realized Harry must not be looking at his watch anymore. I don't know, Lily, Sirius marked. Are you sure Ron just doesn't blush so much his whole body turns red? You two are both awful, Remus cut in before anyone could respond, giving James a chance to keep reading. Remus verbally praised Harry for that, saying, it was good of you to set that up before. Harry smiled at him, deciding against mentioning they'd hardly done that on purpose. James suddenly burst out laughing as he said, just picturing someone watching that as they went by, it would have been a sight. Sirius grinned as well, unable to deny that, though severally hoping no one had seen that, as it would make it all the harder for Harry and Ron to be innocent of whatever Malfoy might have seen that night. Well, that was polite, Lily grinned, despite her disapproval of Harry's actions. She couldn't deny she was rather impressed with the way he acted during all of this as well. Agreed, Sirius nodded. We do know more now than we did before. James got an uneasy look on his face as he said, Ah, is that really the best idea? Why does Ron know this information? Does Ron really want his dad to go after the Malfoys like that, without some more solid proof? At Harry's rather hurt look, James quickly said, Obviously, I know he's telling the truth. I'm just saying it might not be the best idea in the world. Lily smiled approvingly at him, pleased James actually did think things through every once in a while. Harry, however, had no real answer for him and just shrugged, never having checked what Ron told his dad about this. Not good, Lily frowned. Very not good. Why wouldn't Hermione be okay now? Harry demanded. They exchanged uneasy looks, not really being able to think of an answer to that. I'll back up that not good, Sirius agreed grimly. I don't think she ever turned into Millicent, Lily sighed. I'm just not sure what she did turn into. Clearly nothing good, Remus muttered. Fur, Remus asked in concern. Oh, did she somehow get hold of an animal's hair? Lily yelped in shock. Yes, Harry said in excitement, which faded at once when he realized he had no idea how or why. Bloody hell, Hermione was about to explain it in just a second, and his stupid memory still wouldn't show him. Still, he asked his mom. That's what would happen, right? Just about, Lily agreed sadly. Some people have tried using the Polyjuice potion for temporary animal transformation, instead of doing it properly by becoming animagi, and the end result is they get stuck halfway between an animal and a person. But it's reversible, right? Sirius asked in concern, thankful none of them had ever thought of that tactic. Yes, Lily nodded. There are a few potions and spells you would have to take to help reverse the process, but it's slow going. It will take a while before she's back to normal. Harry relaxed, sure that if this was the bad thing he remembered about Hermione this year, this didn't seem all bad since it would wear off by the end of school. Right, this was the bad thing that happened to her, wasn't it? I do feel bad for her, Remus winced. After all, this was her idea. Yet she was the one who got these awful problems. So we finally found the one way to cheer Myrtle up, Sirius added, ignoring Remus shooting him an irritated look for that. This is exactly why too, James nodded. There's the plus side, Sirius cried happily as he took the book from James. Having a tail is quite the experience. Yes, 2 50-pence pieces actually do equal £1 in British money. I had to double-check that fact before I said that since I don't know British currency that well, so just in case anybody else was wondering. There you go.